Welcome back, everybody, to another wonderful episode of Banter on the Rocks. Today is St. Patrick's Day, Monday, March 17th. So happy St. Patty's Day, everybody. John's repping the green. I got the green hat going here. Yeah, getting into the tradition here. And on today's show, we have some really fun stuff planned for you. We're going to talk some NFL news, more free agency action happening, a little bit on the trade market. We're going to discuss March Madness. Really excited about this one. It tides us over until we get back into NFL
Yes.
season, I feel like. So this is a nice little filling of the void. And then we have a special guest, our good friend Armando joins us, and we discuss AI, artificial intelligence. So that's a really fun topic
Mhm.
that we'll discuss with him, and certainly much more. And before we get going on with the show here, we of course always want to talk about our brand ambassadorship with Find the Good brand. Ripping the hoodie today myself, super comfortable. It's been cold and rainy up here, so
Mhm.
definitely coming in clutch as always. And with Find the Good brand, it's focused on the good and building a community of people who want to help find that good. For all purchases, Find the Good gives back 10% to Mental Health of America organization. And if you use our promo code BANTER805, you'll get 10% back on your purchase. So that's 10% for mental health and 10% back to you. Remember to use that code BANTER805 for that 10% off. And our we had our first giveaway. So
Mhm.
certainly want to do we want to shut them out
Yeah.
right here and now?
Yeah. Let's
Okay,
go for
great.
it.
So we have contacted our winner, and our winner was Estevan. Estevan, shout out you. He did choose, of course, the Trent Williams jersey. Fellow 49er fan. Can't blame him. It's a great jersey.
Mhm.
He's already discussed plans of framing it as well. So props to him. Congratulations, Estevan, on winning the first giveaway. Now, this is going to be most likely the first of many, of course. We love, showing our love back to our
Mhm.
supporters and everybody who takes the time to, stop by and view or listen to our podcast. So we're really appreciative and certainly have a lot more planned in the future. But shout out Esteban on this very first one.
Mhm.
Congrats, buddy. And yeah, now moving into drinks of the pod. Obviously, this is a big drinking holiday,
Mhm.
John.
It is.
And I am certainly going classic Irish. Recently did Ancestry, found out I'm 20% Irish. So,
Okay.
just
Nice.
getting more into the holiday spirit than usual. Had no idea I was 20 full
Uh,
percent. But hey, I'll take it. I love it. So, repping the Guinness today.
okay.
Sticking with the classic. Try to pour it successfully because they know if you pour it wrong, it's not going to taste great. So
Mhm.
tried to go with, a good pour here, but it's been
Nice.
delicious so far.
Good. Yeah, no, it's a good beer for the type of holiday for the holiday, St. Patrick's Day. I'm sticking to my normal, just some tequila and OJ. Didn't have any beer. Been busy day at
Okay.
work, so um, but always good. And I think for this holiday, any alcohol is a good alcohol to drink for St. Patrick's Day.
You're not wrong. You're not
Uh,
wrong.
yeah. Have you ever had
Always
any
good.
of that green beer that they sell at like the pubs too?
I have. What's that pub in Newbury Park? Forget the name of
Um,
it. Or I don't even know if
I
it's
don't
there
think it's
anymore.
there. I think it was Dargan. Or, was it Dargan's or
Yeah, something like
something like?
that. It
Hmm.
was great though. I remember celebrating St. Patty's Day there, God, maybe 10 years ago now. But yeah, that place was great for just having some green beer on
Hmm.
the holiday. And I think that's the only time I've ever had it.
Okay,
Um, but yeah, no, it was okay. It's
nice.
fun. I guess, how about yourself?
No, never have. I don't know. I'm a little
Okay.
scared of green beer, but it seems
Yeah.
tasty. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I think of course whenever you're having anything with like dyes in it, you
Mhm.
should of course be careful, especially I feel like it would give you a fat headache too if you drink too much of it. I think just
Yeah,
one for tradition is fine.
yeah, just
Um,
for that
but
Instagram
yeah.
post.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and
Uh,
of course you got to enjoy an Irish car bomb.
Yeah,
That's
an Irish
a famous thing for for Fat Boy, our
for
good
Fat
buddy.
Boy. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
probably out there taking a few right now.
Yeah, he's probably just flicking the shot into his
Yeah.
beer now.
Oh yeah.
That's good stuff.
Awesome. But yeah, that's
But yeah.
drink of the week. Our drinks of the week, as always, we'll be switching it up whenever we get the chance. It gets a little busy for us, life, family, kids. Um, but gonna
Oh yeah.
we're gonna do some more. But we'll go into our banter takes. As always, we exchange our takes. We haven't seen these beforehand, and these are takes that each of us will follow through with, until they get proven right, wrong, or they get debuffed. So my take for the day, auctions and collecting have taken a huge hit this past week with the hot Cheetos, the shape of Charizard selling for $87,000. Yes, I saw
Wow.
that hot Cheeto and it, it's so insane how a piece of food, a snack, gets sold for that just because it's
Hmm.
shaped like a Pokemon, and why it was shaped that way. I've never seen a Cheeto shaped that way, so it's a deformed Cheeto. I don't know if you really want to eat it, but my question is, what's gonna happen to the Cheeto in a few years? Even if you keep it in an enclosed case, it's gonna get rotten, mold. So
Absolutely.
whoever had it and sold it for 87,000, kudos to you. Nice pickup. But that's just not a good look for that hobby. And I think it's also not just for the hobby, but for those resellers, those people trying to make a career out of selling it, because it's sort of mocking and making a joke of that business because it is considered a business on top of a collecting. There's a lot of people you see on TikTok, Instagram that are legit card collectors. They, deal cards, sell cards, collect cards, and they make a good profit out of it. So seeing things like this isn't the best. I think I saw a TikTok that someone sort of created their own Charizard also, and you could see it was glued on like Cheetos. I think there was like a Dorito on it, and they were like, just
Nice.
and like I say, it's mocking what happened. So anytime there's a like parody of your business of something like that, it sort of takes a little hit to the business. We'll see if it shows up on SNL. I think if you make it to SNL, it shows like, okay, you guys gotta find a way to change it, change that narrative. So, um, we'll see. I'm still gonna collect my cards, but like I say, I'm not the biggest spender on them, and I like collecting and just opening up.
Yeah, I'm the same exact way. Cards is one thing. You start getting into these random food
Mhm.
objects, it's a whole nother. If
Yeah.
if I recall correctly, I forget if it was like a Cheez-It or something random. It was like in the shape of Jesus, I
Oh, really?
think. And yeah, somebody went
Dang.
on to, I don't know, sell it, or I just remember it vividly being on the news.
Hmm.
I forget what kind of food item it was, but I just remember it was like
Hmm.
literally looked like Jesus. And I'm sure, the market for that would probably be pretty
Hmm.
extraordinary if somebody wanted to go and resell it after this Charizard chip.
Yeah.
Um, and quite frankly, I'm just going to start checking my chips at this point, see if one's like,
Shaped.
deformed or something. Be like, oh yeah, that looks like Fred Flintstone.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
you
go
never
sell
know.
it. It's yeah. But I don't know. It's I just feel like it takes a hit to the market when
Hmm.
you have something so random,
Hmm.
selling like this. And it almost, in my opinion, has turned into something where just a bunch of rich people go to, write off taxes or something. I don't
Yeah.
even know what to call it these days, but like, I don't know. I don't necessarily want to call it laundering, but
Nah.
it's just, it's random places just to throw your money.
Hmm.
I saw another article kind of similarly related to this where somebody bought an invisible statue for $18,000. So, um, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know if that money goes to a particular somebody
Hmm.
or if it maybe actually goes to like a good cause like a
Hmm.
charity.
Yeah.
I'd kind of hope it would go to, some type of charitable donation at if
Hmm.
you're gonna buy something imaginary like that. But yeah, I just don't
Hmm.
think that this is a good look for those who take collecting serious.
Yeah.
It kind of creates a mockery of it, and it must be nice to whoever has $87,840, I think it was, to spend on a hot Cheeto.
Yeah.
Props to you. Maybe you got something good. Maybe this will resell even
Yeah.
more in a couple years. You never know. So
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll see. Like you mentioned, is the money going to a charity? What's happening? Because anytime someone donates to a charity, it's tax deductible. So, you find ways to save taxes. And
Mhm.
I know a lot of the rich people, they donate a lot of money because they get something back. I don't think we know the ins and out of that because we're not even close to that percentage of money. But hey. If
No.
that's what they're doing, that's what they're doing. I know it was a few years ago. I saw the Doritos Cool Ranch. Do you remember seeing the one that had like all the flavoring on it? And it was like, I think it was sold,
Yeah. It was like
because
super
of,
thick, right?
yeah, it was super thick and it was like the whole Cool Ranch Dorito was just covered in that seasoning that it comes in. And I've never seen one that covered in. My other thought
Right.
is like, after a few drinks, especially on St. Patrick's Day, like today, you get a little hungry, and what are you gonna do if you just have that sitting out there in a case, and that's all the food you have? That's a
Yeah.
very expensive hot Cheeto.
No kidding. I feel like when I was a kid, I'd be like, I feel like a lot of people did this when they were young. Like you kind of stare at your food and you're like, oh, that kind of looks like, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go eat its head off or something,
yeah,
uh, it makes me think like, damn, should I have saved those objects that look like something, I guess?
yeah.
Because yeah. And in quick follow-up question for you on this one,
Hmm.
John. I think it was Golden Auctions that ended up selling this
Hmm.
particular Charizard, and props to them for
Hmm.
fetching such a high dollar amount on something so random.
Yeah.
Do you feel like this helps them for future auctions, or is this like, man, you guys are whack? Like, can't believe that you guys are
Um,
getting into the hot Cheeto business.
I think they're always gonna be selling. I think it gives them that like attention that, hey, we don't just do cars, we don't just do sports memorabilia, we'll do whatever that could catch some money, and
Hmm.
like I say, we're in a world, we're in a society now where some of the most random things are just so popular, could sell for so much money, so it's not surprising, it's just crazy to see a hot Cheeto do that. you know
Do you think do you think the buyer's a bigger Cheeto fan or a Pokemon fan? Because
I think the buyer's probably more of a Pokemon fan and has
Mhm.
like all those Pokemon, boxes in its cases, all the packs, all the cards, and it's just to add to that collection. But like I say, what's gonna happen with it because it's food. It's not non-perishable food. It's perishable. After it's
Sure.
been out of the bag for a while, it's gonna get stale. It could get, you know, rotten, moldy. And what are you going to do when that happens? Is that the
Yeah.
first is that the first stage of this Charizard evolving to a super Charizard or something like a dark Charizard? Who knows what people are going to
Right.
call it?
Yeah. Right. I mean, if you have 87 G's to drop on a hot Cheeto, maybe you have like hyperbaric chamber
Maybe.
money to put the Charizard in the hyperbaric chamber. That'd be
But
so
how
crazy.
much do you think that'll cost? That's probably another
Oh,
$87,000. I'm like,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe this guy has or woman has a I don't know, like a collection of, original 1950s or 60s McDonald's food chilling in
maybe
there too. And
it
it's
could
just
be.
a crazy collection, you know.
It'd be
But
crazy.
yeah, uh-huh. It's yeah, I don't know. And then love to see how they display it
Hmm.
in the collection. Is this the centerpiece or
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Telling you,
Good
I think
stuff.
I think if the collector has kids in the house, you got to be very careful because I know my kiddo
Mm.
sees that Cheeto, gets hungry, he's gonna go for it, you know. So,
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
you can't get too mad at a kid for going and eating that Cheeto. So we'll see.
Not at all. My daughter's the same way. She can handle hot Cheetos already,
Eh,
and yeah, I mean that thing's gone.
yeah. So
Playing
we'll
around.
see. But yeah, but that's collecting.
Crazy.
I think there are a lot of auctions collecting. There's going to be a lot of evolutions with that business in that field and hobby. So I'm curious to see what's next because that's the big question. Just what's going to be next.
Absolutely. It's good advertising,
Yeah.
nonetheless, for the auctioneer.
Uh,
Um, but all right, on to my take here. John has sent it over. I was going to go with something similar to this, actually. Paul
hmm,
George stepped away from his podcast to focus on the season and is now out. All pro sports team all pro sports teams are going to stop players from podcasting during the regular season because it's a distraction. Yeah, I completely agree. I of course we've dropped his name quite a bit on here.
hmm,
Micah Parsons is another
no.
one. Angel Reese is another where, podcasting is great and,
Hmm,
I know us two have found an extreme joy in doing this.
hmm,
But if we're pro athletes and, the main source of income, maybe podcasting can be obviously very
hmm,
lucrative. But, if your main focus to fame and what generated a big podcast for yourself was your playing career, you
hmm,
got to focus on that first. And I think if you step aside for, however many
hmm,
months out of the year, you're in play for your season, I think it's necessary. I think it's a little odd that, you go on the field and then you step away for, a podcast to talk about whatever,
hmm,
whether it's real life situations, you talk about your
hmm,
team. You could be spilling tea out of
hmm,
what your team is currently doing, and, it could lead to, even bigger drama that,
hmm,
could open up. So, um, yeah, and then when stuff like this occurs, obviously you hate to see anything that could be season-ending injuries. We've talked about Paul George on here
hmm,
before, not so much about his podcasting, but just, maybe he's this kind of an unfortunate source of bad luck on
hmm.
teams. It seems like he's always
Yep.
associated with teams that have high hopes, but just it never comes to fruition. You name it, Clippers, his Oklahoma City Thunder days,
Hmm,
Pacers, he was more up and coming. But, since then, he's just been involved in big trades, big signings, big dollar amounts surrounding him. And the big thing is podcasting kind of just creates this big distraction, especially in seasons where, like right now, he's out for the season, and then it's like, man, maybe you should have focused on, X, Y, and
hmm,
Z, training a little bit more, taking that podcasting time,
hmm,
to train, you name it. God knows what he does in his prep
hmm,
to get ready for the season and stuff, but still big questions will be asked, and it just
hmm.
it could turn into something that you don't want it to be, when you're just having podcasting be something of enjoyment. But I think at times it can definitely be a distraction and
Hmm.
cause that unwanted drama. Definitely curious to see what you think about it, John.
Yeah, I think it's gonna change because of this Paul George stuff because he's the one that decided to step away from podcasting because I don't know if he used the word distracting, but he wanted to focus on the season. He wanted to help get the Sixers to the playoffs, and make a good run. And unfortunately he got hurt. So I think it's a trend that a lot of owners are going to see and sort of see that it is a distraction. I kudos to all these athletes that are creating podcasts, getting creative with it because they have an audience, they have great content because they play the game. The ins, like you mentioned, ins and out of the locker room, the players, they have access to the players who a lot of them are friends. So, but I think during the off season it's fine, but during the season it's where I think it gets distracting, because there, even though it's just an hour, I think when we talked about this many months ago, there was one commenter that said that, you know, Micah Parsons probably has like a whole team of people doing everything for him for this podcast, and he's just there for content. But just that content alone is going to be distracting because he's going to hear all the comments. He's going to see all the comments. Michael Parsons has probably seen all our comments, all our videos, and probably hates Banter on the Rocks right now because of how much we talk about him. But that's what you
Hello,
get, you
Micah.
know. And it's, he's going to be thinking about it, during the day. You can't forget it. So during the NFL season, I think it's a big distraction, and I like I say, I enjoy a lot of their podcasts. I think there was only one person that was podcasting that was successful and won a championship, and that was Travis Kelce. Um, but I don't, Travis Kelce didn't do it alone. He had Patrick Mahomes. I think without Patrick Mahomes, he would have been unsuccessful, not winning, and then it would have shown the data that if you have a podcast, you aren't winning a Super Bowl, you aren't winning an NBA championship, you aren't winning, a MLS championship. All these sports, you don't see a podcaster winning the big game because they're probably distracted with something. So, um, like I said, don't want them to stop because it is good content, but when you're getting paid millions to try to win your team a championship, that should be your sole focus, even though podcasting for them is probably very lucrative. They're making great money. We're doing this for a hobby, for fun, hoping to get to maybe even a percentage of what they get, and
Yep.
but like I say, our focus always is still going to be our work, because that's where we make the money. So for them, I think they got to step back and look at what their sole focus should be. Because if I was an owner, knowing a third of my players are doing podcasts, getting distracted, it's either I'm going to tell them you got to make a decision. You're either going to podcast or you're going to play for me, because I'm paying you millions upon millions of dollars, to help me win a championship, and there's a distraction.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you hit home on the fact that, just with a previous commenter of ours kind of talking about, Micah Parsons, for example, having a
Hmm.
team around him to help formulate his podcast.
Hmm.
They're not going on the mic and talking for him.
Hmm.
There's a lot that I'm sure goes into, his thought process between,
Hmm.
what content he's going to discuss that week. We're on here for typically, a couple hours a week, and
Hmm.
the thought process behind, what we're going to discuss is pretty thorough.
Hmm.
It's a lot of back and forth between John and I,
Hmm.
in that fact, and that's excluding, all of the editing and stuff that goes
Hmm.
into it also. But, just the thought process behind what we're going to discuss, it's going to be super important, or else,
Hmm.
you're going to have a podcast that, fame or not, nobody's
Hmm.
really going to want to listen to because you don't
Yeah.
really have a direction of where it's going. So, um, that, and maybe other folks in the locker room where their main focus is the team
Hmm.
and not separate accolades or
Yeah.
off the field stuff. It's, hey, I'm here to play football.
Hmm.
And we just recently saw something. Sorry, we're going after you a bit here, Micah, but DeMarcus Lawrence, he recently won from the Cowboys to the Seahawks. Him and Micah certainly had a charming back and forth
Hmm.
after DeMarcus Lawrence's departure recently.
Hmm.
And, God knows, but, let's just, for a formality here,
Hmm.
say that maybe a lot of people in the locker room thought the podcast was a distraction and
Hmm.
it was taking away from time that, could have been used towards the team and bettering the team. And,
Hmm.
obviously Mike is a tremendous football
Yeah.
player and makes a huge difference to that defense. I don't want to take that away. But still, tremendous or not, if you're, talking a lot about your podcast and yapping about it,
Hmm.
or, people know about it, it could annoy some.
Yeah.
And, it's, you know, again, go back to the word distraction. So,
Hmm.
it shows multiple forms, and I agree with you. I think it's going to turn into a bigger topic.
Hmm.
Um, and quite frankly, it could help us out a bit, too,
It
John.
could.
It gets us up the charts a bit, and
It could possibly.
but let's see where this rolls out.
Yeah. Yeah, and like we've been saying, it's just a big distraction. It takes a lot of time because we're thinking of what our topics are for the week for about a week. We record one time a day,
Hmm.
one time a week, and we don't just come on here and just talk whatever we want to. We really think about
Hmm.
what's been going on, what we want to talk about. We sort of set it up, and like I say, Michael Parson has a team, but all the content, it's him. All those interview questions that he has with other players or whoever he has on, he's coming up with the questions. And, you have to be able to think on your feet in the moment because, you could have a script, but you can't just go off of that script. You have to go freestyle a lot of the time. And you guys will see that with our interview with Armando. We got him prepped. He, very, very new to podcasting, very new to being on video, but, we appreciate him taking the time. And, we gave him the questions that we wanted to ask, got him prepped. But, after the recording, he sort of shared, like, hey, you guys sort of went off script and just started asking some random questions. And what we said is like, that's the game. We give you a script, but depending on what answers you give us, we might have to go a different route, just to continue with that topic and get it juicy and make it a fun, interesting, intriguing conversation instead of just like, oh, XYZ, where you just sound like a robot and sound like AI, So
Right.
there,
Exactly.
there's a lot to it. And, I think the other one, another commenter with one of our most recent videos about Angel Reese talking about the WNBA lockout on TikTok, they mentioned, she's talking about it because she has that platform, she has the followers, and I agree. Yes, she has the followers, so a lot of people are looking at her. But one of my rebuttals was, but she also has a lot of negative views towards her too. A lot of her videos are of her missing so many layups, stat padding, her rebounds, and that's not who you want to try to promote the WNBA. You could get Sabrina, Caitlin Clark, Aja to talk more about, the collective bargaining, trying to get paid more, and it'll look a lot better because they are star players that have a great resume, whereas Angel Reese has just social media fame, has that, and it's a big difference. So,
Hmm.
um, like I say, I think podcasting for big NFL players, uh, all athletes is a distraction. Like I say, I like their content. I'm not gonna say I hate it. I like Micah Parsons' content. I disagree with a lot of his takes. I like a lot of these players, but if it was players on the team I follow, I'd be a little frustrated if I felt like it was a distraction to them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, in again, going into the locker room, you can only imagine what's being discussed around the
Hmm.
room, and it just causes unnecessary
Hmm.
drama.
Yeah.
And I think everybody likes to avoid that, and just kind of be in unison, especially during the season. Everybody has a common goal of winning.
Yeah.
And going back to Paul George and the 76ers, besides tonight, they played well tonight.
Hmm.
Um, there's not a whole lot of that going on over
Hmm.
there in Philly right now. So, um, besides the Eagles, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's, but yeah, it's turned into something that I think needs to be, reviewable amongst the team, and maybe they build it into contracts too.
Hmm.
We've seen crazy things in the past. Look at Kyler
Hmm.
Murray. They built something into video games with
Yep.
him. Him to focus a bit more. So, we'll see. Um, yeah, interesting topic, interesting stuff. Curious to see how it shakes out.
Yeah.
Love the content in general, though, but
Hmm.
gives us something to talk about.
Yeah. No, for sure. And with NFL season getting closer, I think that's a big one. We'll see what happens. We'll see what goes on with that. But yeah, those
Mhm.
are our banter takes for today. We're just doing one. We had our interview with Armando, so we were giving a little bit more time to that. But one of the next things we wanted to talk about were just more NFL free agency updates, and one of them, Kyle Juszczyk, gets released. I think a lot of people, a lot of 49er fans were very disappointed, but then re-signed. So
Oh yeah.
Tim, how are you feeling?
Oh, very, very relieved. It's good to have him back. It's he's just one of those players that you just want to see retire with your team.
Mhm.
He's made such a big difference on a lot of teams. He's, fun to watch, and just his nickname in general,
Mhm.
Juice, is
Jeez.
he's a fan favorite. So we're thrilled to have him back. It's like one of the only wins I feel like we've really had this offseason.
Mhm.
Besides that, it's just been a bunch of bleh. And, I was telling John, before our interview with Armando earlier about, I just don't think the Niners will really do much this offseason
Mhm.
at this point. I don't think there's much to do. And I think that we are okay with a somewhat mini rebuild right now.
Mhm.
So, if we can bring a guy like Juice back on, I think it was like 2 years, 7 mil,
Mhm.
something like that, something
Yeah.
small. I think it's worth it. But what I will say is, out of all of these freaking moves, Moody was not part of any of them, which is just driving me nuts. And I think it's driving a lot of Niner fans nuts right now. But we'll see.
We'll see.
The offseason's still going on.
Yeah.
But thrilled to have Juice back. I think that's a really clutch signing.
Yeah. How many more years does Moody have? Does he still have it done, like one more year in his contract? Like
I think
of his
one,
rookie?
yeah, because he's
Yeah.
kicked 2 seasons, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
so one more, I
One more.
believe.
So I
Um,
think they'll keep him another year, but I think he's on an even shorter
Probably.
leash that
Yeah.
you're like, oh man, don't be saying that.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get a better pick than 11 this upcoming season, I guess is all I can really
Yeah.
root for. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe they'll
And,
just start missing.
and I have a few questions for you just with 49ers. Been seeing a lot of
Yep.
people saying it's rebuild, starting fresh. What would you say? Because the other word I feel like is probably a retool for the team. Are you looking at it more as a rebuild
Hmm.
year or a retool year, trying to get it still be in contention but not starting fresh?
Yeah. This was another thing we kind of talked about, I feel like before the Armando interview where, on local radio at least, a lot of reporters are kind of calling this a competitive rebuild, which, at this point, I don't know what the hell you want to call it, but I I don't see how we're remaining competitive with
Yeah.
all that we've let go for free.
Hmm.
We have a lot of dead cap. I think we lead the league in dead cap
Hmm.
space at the moment, which is a big ick. And yeah, again, we don't really have much room to sign anybody. Brock Purdy's due a tremendous amount of money, so we're just waiting on that
Hmm.
as well. So, the best way to phrase it is I wouldn't call it a competitive rebuild. I'd call it like, yeah, kind of like a retool. I think after those two unsuccessful trips to the Super Bowl
Hmm.
in recent years, uh, just kind of came to the realization that the team that was there isn't working. It's not
Hmm.
getting them over the hump.
Yeah.
I don't 100% necessarily believe it's all on the players either.
Hmm.
I think that you have the king of choke with Kyle Shanahan at the helm too. Um, and that goes back to his Falcon days.
Uh,
So, uh, yeah, I'd call it a little bit more of a retool because we still have some really big pieces there.
hmm.
Ayuk is still locked in. We'll see if we trade him.
Yeah.
We still have Fred. We have Kittle.
Hmm.
CMC obviously. So, there's still really, really, just
Hmm.
all pro type players that are
Yeah.
still locked in on this team. So probably more of a retool. I think that
Hmm.
this could be a quick turnaround, hopefully.
Hmm.
But yeah, what do you think, John, on the outside looking
Yeah,
in?
I think it's more of a retool because, like you mentioned, you guys have the players, Fred Warner, Kittle, and you know Christian McCaffrey. As long as you have him on the team, and if he's healthy, you're in Super Bowl contention. You can't say otherwise. All these other play people that say like, "Oh, Christian McCaffrey's washed, he's done." If he's healthy, you guys are in it no matter who else is on the team. So I think
Hmm.
it's a retool. Yeah, you guys haven't signed too much, made too many big moves, but I'm curious what you guys do in the draft. I think there's a lot of great talent in the draft, and I think also after the draft, we'll see what other trades happen because there's going to be trades. There's going to be guys that go from practice squads, and or from, offseason, and some of them are gems. And I think the 49ers are always pretty good at finding some deep gems, in the draft and also just in free agency. People that come, are having a bad year and come to the 49ers and do okay. They do well. They get you guys to where you need to be. So, um, but as long as you guys have McCaffrey and he's healthy, you guys are a threat. So we'll see how he does after. I'll say he had a year off. So,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, a year off and hopefully, like you said, comes back healthy. He's had so many injuries over his career, but
yeah.
still bounced back whenever he does play
Mhm.
and plays really well. It's he's a hard worker, he's a freak athlete. He's
Mhm.
still young. He's
Yeah.
still in his late 20s, There's still
Hmm.
some juice left in hopefully we draft well. Obviously, as of late, we've had a little bit of,
Hmm.
tricky times with the draft, but there has been a ton of players that we have drafted that have turned out just
Hmm.
uber successful. So,
Yeah.
we can kind of turn around. We
Hmm.
do need to build that O line a bit. Hopefully it's a quick development where, maybe we're focused on players that we can quickly develop and
Yeah.
just maybe came from a style of play that,
Hmm.
can kind of just lean right
Yeah.
into the NFL. So interesting stuff. We'll see. Don't
Yeah.
think we'll be uber competitive, but sticking in that division,
Hmm.
kind of jumping over here. We kind of hinted at it a few weeks back, John, just with Cooper Cup.
Hmm.
Obviously, he's from the Pacific Northwest, grew up in Yakima, Washington,
Hmm.
heading back to Seattle, staying in the NFC West. Rams let him go to free agency. I
Hmm.
think he signed for what was it, a 2-year, 3-year 45?
Yeah. I
Three,
think
something
that's what
like
it
that,
was. Yeah.
40, something like
Hmm.
that. So a nice little complimentary piece with Jackson,
Hmm.
and then you obviously have Darnold. I don't know, a little something going on up there in Seattle, especially with
Hmm.
Demarcus Lawrence heading up there too on the defensive end.
Yeah.
Um, they could be a threat more than
Hmm.
last year. And we'll kind of see what happens. But what do you think? Do you think he plays maybe a good development piece, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think he helps the Seahawks. I think we were questioning the Seahawks moves, no DK, Geno
Hmm.
Smith gone, Sam Darnold, is he the answer? And I think Sam Darnold with a player like Cooper Cup, if Cooper Cup could just give a little bit of his, best seasons, it's gonna be so helpful for Seattle. It's gonna help JSN, develop also because he broke out this last year. He became the number one receiver. I think that's why they were okay letting DK go. Lockett, as of right now, I don't think Lockett signed anywhere. So, Lockett could still come
Mm-mm.
back, at a discount. Um, but Cooper Cup, I think Fidel said it. It's he's from up there. He's from up north. So
Hmm.
I think hometown, he's going to be a hometown hero, stays close to home, those family roots. And he's won a Super Bowl. So he did the goal for everybody. And now, if he could develop this one team, to make it to the Super Bowl and maybe even win one, it's another notch in his belt for his MVP, resume. So I think it's a good move. I would have wished Cooper Cup came to the Ravens just because I always feel like we need wide receivers. Um, but
Yep.
not mad about it. I think Seattle could, as they have been the last few years, be that dark horse getting into the wild card because they could have a very good team. Their defense is still pretty solid. So,
Hmm.
and they have a running game. Kenneth Walker, if he could stay healthy, he's one of the top running backs in the league. And then their backup, Zach
Yeah,
Charbonnet, another
it's great.
great back. So they have a solid team in Seattle. So I I'm a little bit more excited about it now that they signed Cooper Cup. If it was just JSN, I'd be a little concerned. Jake Bobo, great, probably a great guy, great player,
Yeah,
but not that one type of wide
it's a
receiver
great
that's gonna
name.
help you. Yeah.
It's a great name,
Yeah.
Bobo. But quick question: You're obviously our in-house fantasy guru here, John. Cooper Cup returned to top 10 wide receiver fantasy wise. or
No,
maybe top five?
no,
No.
not
Okay.
for me.
Still
Not
outside
for
of
me.
it. Yep.
Yeah. So outside of it, getting close just because
Hmm.
I I'm very curious about what Sam Darnold is without a Jay Jetta. Like I say, Sam Darnold, he
Yep.
was a journeyman, many teams, never was that great quarterback. Went to Minnesota, started because of just a very unlucky injury to JJ McCarthy, and played with the best wide receiver since probably Calvin Johnson, in the NFL that you can just throw to him and he's going to catch it. So Cooper Kupp is not Jay Jettas. JSN, not Jay Jettas. So I'm curious how Sam Darnold's going to be, and that's why I think I have him outside of the top 10, um, because I just don't know what Sam Darnold's going to be in Seattle.
For sure, makes sense. Yeah, and I'm also curious to see what he is outside of having Kevin O'Connell as his head
Hmm.
coach. I
Yeah.
think Kevin O'Connell will see what he did with Kirk Cousins
Hmm.
and then what Kirk Cousins did without him,
Hmm.
who's no longer even a starter. So
Yeah.
I think that's a big difference maker. He really rejuvenated his career too. Jay Jett is
Hmm.
obviously Addison, another, great piece that they had
Hmm.
there also. So yeah, and no more dome either. I wonder
Hmm.
if that'll
Yeah.
make any bit of a
Yeah.
difference. The dome always
Cold,
seems to help.
cold
Um,
weather, rain,
yep,
you know.
you bet. Yeah, it's a different factor over there. But curious to see NFC West is
Hmm.
a stacked division again. It seems like it's pretty equal. There's
Hmm.
not one team that's super outstanding. Everybody's kind of made some nice added pieces, minus the Niners, but we already still have some
Hmm.
pieces to do something. But yeah, and I did hear the other day too. I kind of randomly hinted at, speaking just sorry, keeping in the NFC
Hmm.
West side tangent here, John. Um, Kyler Murray. Somebody recently said, keep an eye on Kyler Murray with some type of possible movement. Haven't heard anything regarding
Hmm.
that front, but I am curious to see if there's any follow-up on that within,
Hmm.
this off season, but not positive on it. So we'll see what happens.
Hmm.
And yeah, kind of, also kind of sticking with wide receivers in general here, John. Cincy
Let's see.
finally paid people,
Hmm. They
outside of
did.
Burrow. Notorious for not paying anybody,
And
being
yeah,
cheapskates. Here we go with, you know, is it the largest contract now for a wide
I
receiver
yeah,
with
I
Jamar, or
yeah.
is Jetta
I,
still?
I think it's Jamar now. And well
Okay.
deserved. I think they're both 1A, 1B.
Mhm.
You could mix match them and they're good. But yeah, Cincy, happy for the players because I like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. A little disappointed because it's within my AFC North. So now I know we got
Oh
to go
yeah.
up against them and they always burn
Oof.
us. So but yeah, no, good moves for Cincy. Kudos to them getting paid. They got a great duo in Cincinnati, and now they just gotta fix a few more things to get back to that Super Bowl.
For sure. I was gonna actually, one of my hot takes that I was gonna have for you, but kind of figured we could implement it here into this
Hmm.
free agent category, was with these two signings. Obviously, the big part of sports in general is a mental game. Maybe these
Hmm.
signings make T. Higgins and Jamar Chase feel even more solidified, happy, or
Hmm.
could play a different factor where they're not trying to prove it anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but question for you.
Hmm.
Obviously they've made a Super Bowl trip, but do you think their Super Bowl window is now kind of reopened in a sense? And if it is, how quickly do you feel like that they have to get back to it?
I think it has reopened because I think T. Higgins was sort of in that contract year, so wasn't fully focused, a little disappointed. Now that they're both paid, I think their window they got to get in within the next 2 years because I think it's just going to get to
Hmm.
be a more competitive league. The Ravens window, I think we have maybe a year to two left. If we can't win it, our window's going to get shut. Casey, they they their window's always going to stay open because of Patrick Mahomes, but there's guys in the AFC, Jaden Daniels coming up. Um, we'll see who in this draft is that, QB that comes out of nowhere. Cam Ward, Sanders. There's a lot of people. So I think if they need to make it within the next 2 years. They have the team. I felt like this last year it should have been Cincy and the Ravens playing for the AFC title game, but Cincy just had a bad season. Um, Joe Burrow, one of the top QBs, I think he had the season high for rushing or passing yards, so it showed he was still throwing. It was just that defense that they were struggling, and they took a little hit, this offseason. So they need to find a way to make it get a little bit better. But yeah, they got to get in within the next 2 years.
For sure. I completely agree with that. I think the big thing that, Joe kind of faced this past season too was just trying to keep up with what their defense gives up. And that defense, without signing Trey Hendrickson to anything yet,
Mhm.
and I don't know if they will after these two big signings. I don't know if
Mhm.
they can really afford him at this point.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious to see what they can do to add to that defense and
Mhm.
quickly.
Yeah.
I think that there's quite a bit to build around there, but when you have a high-powered offense, maybe they can kind of turn it around. Um, as far as the run game goes too, do you feel confident in what they have with the run game based off of what they built this previous season too, John?
Um, I don't feel confident with the
Brown.
run game. I think Brown's a decent running back, not that star
Mhm.
running back, so they may try to draft, who knows, if
Yeah.
Genti falls to them, I see them pulling that trigger. Having that type of player in Cincinnati, that
Ooh.
offense would be scary with
Oh
Genti on it,
yeah. Imagine.
So um
Hot
we'll
take.
see. Yeah. We'll see what could happen, but yeah, I'm not confident in the run game, but like I say, their passing game, they are elite. I'm not concerned about that. And they're sort of like the Lions of last year, and the Lions in the playoffs, where we said Lions had to their offense had to outscore the team because we know their defense was hurt, they were injured, and we knew teams were going to score on them easily. And if they cannot score, they're going to lose. And um, that's what they had to deal with this year. It was tough for Joe Burrow because he also faced some pretty tough teams. His division already a tough division, so they need to fix that defensive side of the ball. I think if they can make a few good moves and shore up some of those positions, they'll be okay.
For sure. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Something to at least kind of solidify it in the meantime and,
Hmm.
kind of keep it to a modest number where, Joe Burrow isn't throwing for, I don't know, 400 yards
Or
a
yeah,
game just
four
to
to five
barely
hundred
keep up
yards,
with,
five
yeah,
touchdowns. Man,
great for fantasy.
yeah.
No arguments there. But again, week in and week out, I can only imagine putting up performances like that and still take the L. That's pretty brutal. Um, But yeah, kind of keeping on, I guess the quarterback front here
Mhm.
too, John. Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, we've had a lot of fun in our group chat with Fidel creating fake Adam Schefter reports with Richie, and those are very entertaining. Where we're trying to see if he will complete the Brett Favre legacy and go to the
Mhm.
Vikings. I guess most recent rumors were, um, something with the Steelers of Steelers or Giants, he'd rather retire if those
Mhm.
were his only two options. If the Vikings don't want to do it, I guess he's contemplating retirement. Outside of that, I guess there's not really too
Mhm.
many more fits or anybody that really wants to kind of deal with, I guess, what comes with Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers. It depends on what the Vikings want to do with JJ McCarthy also. There's a lot of
Hmm.
unknowns there. But what do you think, John, at this point? What's your best guess at what he does?
I think he goes to Minnesota. I think Minnesota needs that QB. Like I say, I think I haven't read into JJ McCarthy's recovery. That type of injury is a tough one for some players. So you
Hmm.
know, if he's not ready for the beginning of the season, you need someone to step in to try to win you games. And Aaron Rodgers can do it. Kevin O'Connell, like you mentioned, has revived quarterbacks. He could maybe revive Aaron Rodgers just to help them get to the playoffs or until McCarthy's ready. And I've never seen Aaron Rodgers as that type of mentor of a QB, so I don't think he's really going to mentor JJ McCarthy, but just McCarthy seeing him play and just being in that same locker room, it could help him gain that confidence and just build into the QB I think a lot of us are hoping for him. So that
For
is
sure. Yeah.
that's my thought. I don't see any other teams. Like I said, the Raiders, I don't think they're gonna pull the trigger on Rodgers. Pittsburgh, I think would want him, but if he doesn't want to go to Pittsburgh, you know, the Giants probably want him as well. Who wants to go to the Giants, honestly? Sorry to say that Giants fan, I'm sorry, but nobody wants to go to New York. Um,
Hmm.
After that, there's not much more out there for him.
Not a whole lot. A lot of those empty spots have been filled now,
Hmm.
and yeah, there's not too much left over really.
Hmm.
Vikings really seem like the best fit,
Hmm.
or maybe nothing at all. And crazy to say, Aaron Rodgers finished in touchdown passes above Jaden Daniels, Patrick Mahomes,
Hmm.
Justin Herbert, Kyler, Jordan Love. He outplayed
Yeah.
technically, quite a few players.
Hmm.
He had a better end to his season than he did a start of his season, and maybe a lot of that was just kind of en route with his Achilles recovery.
Hmm.
So yeah, maybe he has a little bit more left in the tank, but the Vikings really have to weigh their options here. And maybe what's making it
Hmm.
tricky is they're kind of stuck in no man's land, in my
Hmm.
opinion, where, they have these tremendous assets on their
Yeah.
team with Addison, Jettas, great
Hmm.
defense, but just that quarterback position, it's like JJ McCarthy kind of sets them into a
Hmm.
rebuild mode, maybe not so much rebuild,
Hmm.
but kind of. Uh,
Yeah.
and then you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers out there that, yeah, he has the baggage, but at the same time, he's kind of a win now guy.
Hmm.
His time's ticking, and the Vikings
Hmm.
time, the windows are only so big.
Hmm.
So curious to see if I were somebody, a betting man, somebody within the Vikings organization, I
Hmm.
too would go for Rodgers at this point.
Yeah.
Let McCarthy develop behind him a bit and
Hmm.
see what he can do, because I do think McCarthy needs a little bit more time. I think he's a bit more of a project,
Hmm.
um, most likely.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, that's my thoughts. I don't know if Richie hears this. He's probably like cussing us out, telling us not to jinx his team. But
Right.
honestly, like, who else do the Vikings have right now? Jameis Winston's out
Yeah,
there, but I think I'd take Aaron Rodgers over Jameis Winston play wise, personality wise, Winston all the way. Great locker room guy, but win now,
yeah.
trying to win with this team, it has to be Aaron Rodgers. That's probably their best choice, or I'd say Danny Dimes, but I think he signed already with a team, Indy. Yeah,
Indianapolis.
yeah. So
Yep.
because that's another place, AR, he's he had a bad year last year, and if he doesn't step up, Danny Dimes will, and that's a decent team as well. They got Jonathan Taylor. They got a great running back. So,
They do. Yeah, they have
hmm.
a good defense too, I believe. And
Hmm.
again, kind of a winnable division there.
Yeah.
With the Jags especially involved. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, we kind of crap on the Jags a lot,
Yeah.
me for certain. But yeah, and then going back to Richie real quick, I mean, he could just go back an era and just argue whether or not he wants Kellen Mond to start, Christian Ponder.
Hmm.
I think Tavares Jackson was there at one point, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, he could kind of dwell on those, or
Hmm.
just argue between Aaron Rodgers and JJ McCarthy. I'd
Hmm.
rather have that argument. quite
Yeah.
frankly. So, you know, it's there's worse stuff out there.
Hmm.
But that's kind of the last kind of curious thing I have, I believe. Outside that, it's been kind of, I guess, a bit
Hmm.
more stagnant, right, John?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
too much
the
going.
last few weeks I think it's been more quiet, not much. I think the
Hmm.
Jaguars, they released a lot of players which were questionable things.
Uh-huh.
Questionable moves, Christian Kirk or yeah, I think he was traded. Um, Evan
Hmm.
Ingram released. So it's like what is the
I
coach
don't know
doing,
what they're
man?
doing.
What is that
They,
GM doing? That
well,
that is
I'm I'm telling you, it's the remnants of Trent Baalke in that
it could be.
freaking shit show he created. That's exactly what it is. But I will say, Hard Knocks.
Mhm.
If Jacksonville's eligible, I would low key kind of want them
Yeah,
to be on Hard Knocks this year.
that'd be a good one.
Just between the coach and then obviously they have a young GM now
Hmm.
that I don't know, just it's kind of a funny atmosphere
Hmm.
where they've kind of had some interesting um I guess intros and
Yeah.
interviews so far. I'd kind of I would I would be okay with that, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
I wouldn't mind it. It'd be great TV, and that's what we're about. Great content, great TV. So, but
That's
yeah,
it.
that's about it. Like I say, my Ravens didn't do too much, so we'll see what we do in the draft. Um, but yeah, that's NFL free agency updates, and we'll go on to what we have next. So next we have our buddy Armando joining the show. We had this recording a few days ago, but we're going to be talking about AI. What AI is, just our thoughts, our takes. Armando mentions it good in the episode. We aren't experts, so, this is just us reading. We're not AI gurus or anything like that, but we just love talking about AI because it's something out there now. So um, we have Armando joining the show, so enjoy. Welcome everybody. We have our guest today, Armando Gonzalez, aka Bondo.
Welcome, welcome.
He's joining us all the way from down south in the San Diego area, and we shared a little bit, but childhood friend to me, known Tim for a while, so we're excited to have Armando on today.
All
Welcome,
right.
Bondo.
Hey, yeah, thank you. Thank you for having
Yeah,
me.
yeah. Yeah, and the one reason we brought Armando on today is there's been a big topic a lot recently is AI, and during some of the events we've had where Bondo, Tim, myself, all three of us get together, two of us get together, this is a topic we always like to discuss because it's so relevant in the world and there's so much information about it, but also so much we don't know about it. But to get started, first we're going to be talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and you know, I don't know who wants to sort of share what is AI, to you guys.
All right, so I guess I'll just do a disclaimer real quick, just to
Yeah.
not trigger industry experts, right? So I'm not really an
Yeah.
expert in AI. I'm basically just a fan of the industry. So a lot of it is just going to be me and my thoughts and just
Hmm.
layman's terms about my interpretation of what AI is. So,
Yeah.
trigger warning, not an expert here, just shooting the shit, talking about it.
Yep.
There it is.
That's exactly what it is.
All right, so basically, I mean, what is AI, right? If you just look at the acronym, right, artificial intelligence, but really we just use like a computer model to basically emulate a human.
Hmm.
So I mean, this model, which is an AI model, right, is learning, reasoning, interacting, right, and able to take action. So I mean, the whole idea was to basically be able to solve intelligence, right? And we
Hmm.
program a machine to basically act like a human. So, like when people think about an AI system, we're not actually like creating something like brand new, right? That's a new living being. It's basically just like a system, right? That's a model, and so there's actually different layers of this model that's able to perform multiple actions. So it's not just like one model is the entire
Hmm.
AI system. There's actually like multi-layer systems that perform, specific tasks, and that's
Hmm.
basically what is basically able to create this AI system.
Wow. Very informative, Bondo. I like it so far. Yeah, I guess kind of going along with that, you mentioned something like multi-layered. Like, you know, humans, we're all multi-layered, right? We have
In
different
a way.
forms of expression, feelings, intelligence, blah, blah, blah. Um, you know, does we've seen a lot of, I guess, videos, funny videos, serious videos. About just AI and there's been occurrences where they just don't even like they kind of run away from being shut down at times. We've read stories like that. Are we at the point with AI where they're starting to develop things like feelings?
I mean, it's funny you say that, right? Because the headline today is uh, basically Alibaba has just developed an AI system that's able to
Oh,
look at
dang.
emotion, right? I don't know if you guys saw that, but I mean, this
Mm-mm.
Nope.
this industry is, happening now in real time, and I mean that was basically an AI model that now is able to decipher emotion. I haven't looked at it or tested it, but I mean, is it actually feelings, right, or is it programmed feelings? I mean,
Hmm.
that's basically more of like the ethical debate behind it that's going on. But I think right now they're basically just starting to, I guess, get AI up and running. I mean, it's been going on for a while, but yeah, I mean, there's still a lot to be had.
Yeah. No, that's crazy you say that because it's something we've always seen AI having feelings. And like you say, it's an ethical thing. Like, do they really have feelings? Is it really just program? Um, but it shows how far AI has come probably in the last like 3, 4 years because and like you mentioned, AI is not just one thing that everybody uses that's it's the same AI. There's multiple AI type of programs out there, Chat GPT, DeepSeek. I'm hearing of all these new developers and even, Oracle, trying to develop their own AI for their systems. Like how how far do you think AI has come and is it still gonna grow even more in the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, you gave, I mean, some examples of AI
Mm.
systems, right? I think
Yeah.
that's like when people think of AI, right? They're thinking
Hmm.
of like the big one, right? Chat GPT, which
Yeah.
is basically like an LLM. They call it a language model.
Hmm.
And basically, you ask it questions, right? And it's able to give you answers and basically
Hmm.
just summarizing that for you. And it's
Yeah.
like one type of AI model. Basically, it's like
Yeah.
the HMI interface, human machine interface.
Hmm.
That's basically able to like give meaning to what you're asking, right? And basically give you outputs. But within that AI model, right? So like depending on what you're asking,
Hmm.
it like if you ask it a complicated question, right? There's like another model right behind the LLM called the reasoning model, and it basically breaks down your question and
Oh,
is able to
dang.
basically like think. I mean, there's certain models that like allow you, the AI system to output what it's thinking, so you can kind of like see its thought process,
Yeah.
and you can kind of like see it kind of break down the question. And then depending on like if you're asking for like some sort of image to be created, right, the AI system will basically go into another interface and create like a an image, and it's not the same AI model, right, that's doing that. There's the LLM that's understanding you. There's the
Hmm.
reasoning model that's breaking down your question, and then
Hmm.
there's another AI model that's basically creating the image that you're asking for it to output. So I mean,
Dang.
yeah, they're all sort of connected, and I mean, there's like you said, different companies that are all creating these from the ground up.
Hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
there's still a lot to go, and I mean, we can talk about examples, but yeah, there's a lot of cool shit that I can do.
No, yeah. And I'll say like the one thing I think I've used AI the most myself is to make like thumbnails for our show, the backgrounds and just telling AI what I want it to look like and it's so crazy how accurate it could get, because there's been times I'm specific about like the type of hat. If Tim's wearing an LA hat, I told the AI model with an LA hat and it was perfect. And I'm like, man, it's cool, awesome, but for me at times it's also pretty scary.
He always tells it to make me look like an idiot. Just kidding.
It
I
does the
mean,
job.
dude, that's the great thing is like whatever you're asking for, right? If you don't get the image that you want, you can just
Yeah,
keep asking again, keep refining,
yeah.
keep reiterating, and I mean, it's learning based on everything else you've asked
Hmm.
plus what you just asked. So I
Yeah.
mean, you're just tweaking it. You're actually doing some of that like learning process yourself by
Hmm.
re-asking questions, and I mean, it's actually taking all that data, storing it, and possibly
Yeah.
using it, right, for future outputs.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy stuff. Like in the past, obviously, at least in our generation of living, I feel like we've seen like obviously the tech boom and
Hmm.
everything developing so quickly, whether, you know, it's handheld devices like cell phones, TVs, gaming systems, computers, you name it. Um, you know, like I know you said that obviously there's ways to go still, obviously with AI and it all together. But how far do you think AI will be in, like, let's say maybe the next 10 years? Like, how advanced do we think we're going to get?
So, I mean, right now it's kind of just like a sandbox, right? As far as
Mhm.
like the free version, right? So we're
Hmm.
able to go in, kind of mess around, play around with it, and ask questions. But it, like that part of it, they're not really making any money off of it. It's actually costing them money, right, to run
Hmm.
a free version because they're basically having to use all this power, right, all these resources, right, uh, to basically serve the model for us to basically use. There are like paid versions, right, that are out there. I think there's like a $20 one a month, right? That's a little bit more advanced. Like for you and I, we won't be able to tell a difference, but they can
Hmm.
give you like more advanced answers and basically like use more resources, right, to compute what you're asking. But
Yeah.
I mean, in the future, right, they're talking about basically having like actual assistance on like whatever type of career you're in, right? And it can actually create like an AI assistant for that. And I mean that can be for the whole company to use, or basically you
Hmm.
have like one, one person that's able to access that. And I mean that the amount of thing that you could do for that. I mean,
Hmm.
it's we can get into examples, but yeah, I mean, once you're actually applying that to the workforce, it can get, it can do a whole lot. And I think that's going to be basically the slow progression, right? Is yeah, there's a whole bunch of like computer
Hmm.
programmers out there, right, that know how to use this model, and they're basically applying this like B2B, business to business. But
Hmm.
like for consumers, it's probably going to take a while to get there for like average people to get like huge
Yeah.
benefits out of it. Right now, it's basically all going on internally. I mean, these companies that are basically creating the AI system are the ones that are basically using it the most and actually applying it. I mean, other industries, they don't know anything about software.
Hmm.
It's going to be very difficult to try and hone in on what the
Yeah.
capabilities of that AI system can be.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you mentioned one thing, Armando. AI learning, when you ask it, questions and to refine like a picture, anything, you said it, it gathers that information, that data. And I read somewhere that in the US, they're sort of DeepSeek, that AI platform, is somewhat, they're trying to make it illegal in the States just because DeepSeek isn't US based. It's more China based, I think it is. And from what I've heard and read a little bit into AI, Chat GPT, everything you get, they're collecting all that information. So the US doesn't want us to give that information to China, and probably China probably doesn't care if we get what information they get from us. But like, is that something to sort of be concerned? And when looking at using Chat GPT, these AI systems, looking at where that information and data is going? Because, like I said, another country getting the information, if they want to know how I make Tim look, that's fine. I don't care. I don't think we care that China gets it, but like there's
Oh,
some people that use it for big things, and how scary or how concerning should it be that they may be getting that information?
So you said it correctly. DeepSeek is a Chinese-based AI
Hmm.
model. It was actually just recently released, and it kind of just shook the industry as a whole, right?
Hmm.
And the reason being is because China, I mean, most of these AI systems are using NVIDIA GPU chips to
Hmm.
basically run the model, right?
Yeah.
And the United States government is actually giving like a handicapped version of this GPU system uh, for China
Mm.
just because they don't want, right,
Yeah.
our adversaries having the best of the best chips. And so, out of necessity, China has basically been able to reprogram these chips in a layer that most companies are not accessing because NVIDIA basically gives like a toolbox
Hmm.
and it basically has like a software platform that other systems can build off of.
Yeah.
And the Chinese actually model was basically able to reprogram those internally, and they were able to create like a more efficient system. This is just what I've heard, and they're basically using like they call them like clusters, GPU clusters. They're able to serve their model on a much smaller GPU cluster scale,
Yeah.
and it's basically able to rival other AI systems. And I think that's kind of the scary
Mhm.
part is they
Yeah.
were basically able to create this AI system that's supposed to be right not as good and basically match it. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that raised the eyebrows a lot
Yeah.
in the industry.
Getting pretty advanced there with the chips. I did recognize, out of all that, NVIDIA has really capitalized over the last couple
Hmm.
of years. Stock wise. And I know we'll get into finance heading up here soon, but I guess kind of taking us to a slightly different topic, and one more point to what John was saying earlier. We could also steal your information to use towards how you win fantasy football most seasons as well.
Yeah.
So it could be beneficial. But
Could
Right.
work.
on the topic of I guess sports in general. One thing that popped into, my mind was, just the betting world. Obviously, AI can do a lot more quick research for, things like prop
Mhm.
bets, bets in general. In the future, do you see a lot of people maybe trusting AI to like use towards gambling? Or, do we feel like Vegas could come up with something to kind of combat trying to have AI, you know, give, good answers, I guess, good prop bets,
I mean, the
like an
stock market,
anti-cheat.
right, is made up of like buyers and sellers, right, that are looking at ownerships of a company, right? And
Mhm.
so, I mean, there's a lot of ways to interpret, right? Like what is how is AI affecting the stock market? I mean, I think there's like two ways to answer that. One, which would be like, which companies are that make up the stock market, right, are using AI.
Mhm.
And I think like if you just look at the S&P 500, right, top 10 stocks, most of those are companies that are in tech, right? I mean, if you go down the list,
Mhm.
Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon,
Mhm.
Facebook, which is Meta, Alphabet, which
Yeah.
is Google, right? Tesla. It's not until like we get into like Berkshire Hathaway, right, where it's like, it's probably not a tech company, right? But I mean, all of these companies basically are using AI in a way, right? So, like which portion of their overall company, right, is AI based? I mean, that's
Hmm.
kind of difficult to answer. But I mean, it's the use of AI in corporations is definitely going up. But I
Mhm.
think if you wanted to look at like transaction volume, like what is caused in terms of the stock market by AI, I mean, most of that is made up of right institutions, and then part of that is retail. I
Yeah.
did read somewhere that it's like 75% transaction by institutions, 25 by retail. So a majority
Hmm.
of that chunk, right, is going to be institution volume trading. And so
Mhm.
like part of that is going to be algorithmic, right? And high frequency trading. So like that would be like where AI comes into play. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm sure they look at strategies with AI, right?
Yeah.
It's getting advanced where they're basically looking at, okay, how can we position ourselves defensively or aggressively based on
Mhm.
what's happening in the market? But I mean, when you execute a trade, right, there's not like a checkbox that says, are you an AI or a human that's conducting this trade? So I
That's
mean,
true.
definitely AI is impacting the market, but as far as like how much it impacts, I mean, I think that's for me, it's not knowable. I mean, maybe somebody out there has done a study that could figure this
Hmm.
out, but I mean, definitely the use of AI is increasing, and definitely it impacts the market. It's just as far as the magnitude is concerned, not sure exactly how much that is.
So
Makes sense.
it seems like it might be helping a bit. It might be doing a lot, but we don't know too much. And like you said, with the development of AI within the next few years, it could change drastically depending on where. these AI companies go and how they use this data, which would be interesting to see. And I think before we get into some of the financial things, because there, like you mentioned, AI is really affecting the stock market and the financial world. But with AI, I saw a recent poll from the Pew Research Center that about 26% of students ages 13 to 17 are using like Chat GPT to, help them with their assignments. I don't think they do their full assignments, but helping them. And that's double from last year. Last year it was 13%. So would you, Armando and Tim, would you trust AI right now to help you do school assignments if you were in that age group, or would you be very hesitant?
I mean, when I was in school, AI wasn't around, but I
Yeah.
mean, definitely if it was there while I was there, I would be using it.
Yeah.
Obviously, right, you probably wouldn't be able to get away with it during exams, so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if AI can, do all your homework. I mean,
Yeah.
once you get to a certain level, right, homework is not even collected or graded, right? It's basically just
Hmm.
midterms and finals. But I mean, as long as you used AI in a way where it's helping you, like as a tutor, to basically go through,
Hmm.
um, whatever it is you're trying to learn, then yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely, that'll be useful. But I mean, it won't cheat for you, right? Unless
Yeah.
you're somehow pulling your phone out during the exam.
You have it there.
But yeah, I
Scanning.
mean, good luck, right?
For sure. Yeah, I feel like AI is maybe the modern like Spark Notes because Spark Notes
Hmm.
always came in clutch back in the day. I didn't use it at all. Sorry. Um, but yeah, I feel like maybe, I mean, you nailed it, Bondo. I feel like, using it in summary to maybe help you get to the key bullet
Hmm.
points of what a certain topic holds and, use that to I don't know, finish an essay or something.
Hmm.
Obviously, not copy and paste because, plagiarism tools are out there.
Hmm.
Never a good idea. But yeah, no, that makes sense, to use it as a useful tool, in quick research,
Hmm.
a quicker form of Google, even.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think of it because it's like, there's always things you want to get to know a little bit more about what you're learning. And, you before it was Google when we were in school, we're not going to say how old we are, but we are pretty ancient, to technology nowadays. But we didn't have much of that, we just had to read and learn. So I think I would be using it to help with assignments, but like you mentioned, Armando, I would be using it to help me learn because, like you said, when it comes down to tests, I can't use AI. It isn't going to take my test. I still have to pass it, and that's what majority of someone's grade is. So, for anybody between those ages in high school, college, use it to help you learn, but don't try to use it to cheat because it's not going to get you anywhere in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure even if you use it to like help you write a paper, right?
Hmm.
I mean, nowadays you probably submit your paper online anyways, and
Hmm.
I mean, they can tell you right away that all this information was taken from online, so
Uh,
you're not going to be able to get away with it. You'd have to like take the information and then rephrase it in your own words, and
uh,
I mean, basically you're already writing the paper at that point, so you
yeah.
might as well just do it.
Exactly. There you go. John, you brought up a big thing right there
Hmm.
too about trust
Hmm.
in AI. And it brings up a very important question here, Armando. Carrie Underwood has a famous quote, Jesus, take the wheel. Would you let AI take the wheel?
So like depending on what you're
Drive.
using the AI for, right, that
Mhm.
may or may not be okay. I think like if you're asking for like, would you use it in your job, right? And I
Mhm.
think like right now we're basically just using AI, I guess, to help assist in whatever that we're doing,
Hmm.
but you still have to verify the results, right? So I mean, yeah, you can use it absolutely, but it doesn't like check but verify.
Hmm.
I guess is kind of like where we're at right now. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Would you let it take the driving wheel?
you mean in a literal form?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's already right that one Waymo company, right?
Oh,
That's
it's all
actually
over SF.
yeah. I
It's
mean,
everywhere.
yeah, but in any AI companies out of SF, basically. I mean,
Hmm.
Hmm.
I don't think I mentioned this, but AI models they're tend to basically be more answering questions in like a male ages like 20 to 30, right? That's
Hmm.
single that lives in San Francisco. So I mean,
Mhm.
most of these answers from AI are already like leaning a certain bias,
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
But even Waymo, right, that uses AI, it makes mistakes and it gets stuck, and there's still a human that basically is able to get it out of whatever pinch it's in. I've never taken one, but I mean,
Yeah.
I would definitely do it. Why not?
Yeah, I saw a clip the other day. A Waymo car was hauling ass through a construction site, and it was just crazy to see because it was all gas, no brakes. So,
Oh, yeah.
it gets kind of sketchy after a while for sure. But yeah, in general, I feel like Waymo does a good job. And I am kind of impressed with
Mhm.
like San Francisco, for example. Those are not like easy streets to drive for humans. So you have, an AI, form going through, those types of streets. I think you can trust in many places if it can do that. So
But you mentioned a little bit the stock market, and you sort of answer it, how AI is affecting the stock market. Um, would you invest in these AI companies like Nvidia, that are really the big leaders of AI money? Like, would it be a smart investment? And another disclaimer, we aren't financial advisors. We aren't financial experts. We are sharing our opinions, our thoughts, what we may be investing in, and we do not, if you want to follow us, that's your guys' risk. If there's a reward, good. If not, that's on you guys as well. So, but would you invest in AI, Armando?
This is John saying, "Don't sue me, bro."
Yeah.
So I mean, looking at companies, right, that invest in AI, I mean, yeah, absolutely, I would. I mean, I'm already doing that just as a disclaimer, but
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these companies that are investing in AI that are going to get the most benefit are these hyperscalers, right? So we're talking about like the companies that do cloud computing, that do data
Hmm.
storage, right? So Alphabet, right, which is Google, Meta,
Hmm.
which is Facebook, right?
Facebook.
And then
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a lot of companies that don't have a LLM model that you can test that are
Hmm.
also developing AI, like Microsoft, for example, right? They don't have a model, but they have Azure, which basically does uh, like, like a lot of applications that AI models will basically use is
Yeah.
run through Azure. And then, I mean, looking at other systems, right, that do like secondhand development for
Hmm.
AI, right? NVIDIA, right, that creates all the GPUs. TSMC, which is like
Yeah.
Taiwan Semiconductor, right? They basically create all the chips for NVIDIA. I mean, there's other companies too that like we haven't looked at that also have like a lot of development in AI,
Yeah.
right? With Apple, Amazon, Tesla.
Hmm.
So I mean, I think if you're just looking at like, you know, AI, what should I invest in?
Hmm.
Eh, I would just recommend looking at the S&P 500 and
Hmm.
basically just putting your money there. I mean, you're
Yeah.
already going to get a large amount of companies that are in tech that are also developing AI, and
Hmm.
I mean, you'll also get everything else that the company develops too. I mean, all of these companies don't just specialize in AI,
Yeah.
right? They're already
Hmm.
doing a whole bunch of things besides
Hmm.
that. And, I mean, you'll get a piece of that pie.
Okay. Yeah. No, it was one thing I've always thought about because, like I say, like you say, it's booming, it's building. When I look at investing, I look at like Chick-fil-A, Chipotle type of places that I
smart
like.
man. Yeah.
You know, if
There you go.
GameStop didn't do what they were doing, I probably would have invested in GameStop when it was very low, just because that's what I
Ah,
know.
would have been a steal.
There you go.
Absolutely. One thing kind of crossed my mind at as far as like humans versus AI goes in the workplace. You know, Obviously businesses are starting to use AI. Mine, for example, has, an AI assistant where, residents can call in and then they'll talk with an AI person. I don't know the person's name, we'll just call her Sally. But they literally talk to this person and then, have a full-on conversation. And half of the residents I speak to think that that person is an actual person. They don't know if it's AI or not. So it's getting really good. Furthermore, along that point, you know, I don't know if we're at that point where, it starts affecting, people's jobs and like job loss. And then, another thing that just crossed my mind too, Armando, and John too, if you've seen anything about this, I'm curious of the cost ratio of having AI in the workforce versus paying workers to complete the job. If it would be cost efficient, maybe my guess is probably not so much now, but maybe in the future it could be. But I'm curious if you guys have seen anything about that or, have any other info.
So I can go first. I mean,
Hmm.
right now, I don't think AI will replace all aspects of your job, right? So it's
Hmm.
used like as a tool, right? As in like an expert super assistant, right? But I think, I mean, you're kind of leaning in the right direction, Tim, where companies might not be hiring quite as much in the future just because they can sort of lean on, right, the power of AI, right? The power of an AI assistant, right? Like you said, like answering phones, taking
Hmm.
messages. I mean, if you buy a Google phone, right, you already have that capability. I mean, I'm already using. I don't know if Apple has that feature or not, but
Hmm.
I mean, it's not even like a voicemail. It actually thinks that it's talking to somebody, and
Hmm.
you can either choose to pick up the call or decline it. And I mean, I haven't answered a call from a telemarketer in
That's
years. I
awesome.
mean, all that gets stitched, right? And I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a risk, right? That's one part of like assistance not being there. But I mean, there's so many other things that it can look at if you look at like industry specifics, right? I mean, it's kind of scary, right? But eventually, if AIs get really good, I mean, it could cause hiring freezes or even layoffs. So,
Hmm.
it's sort of like a trade-off, right? Yeah, you're going to gain all of this, but I
Hmm.
mean, on the other side, right, you might lose part of that workforce.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen it. We used it's called Bell's AI. I don't think it's fully like it's somewhat of an AI system, but we use it for documentation and it's sort of just to be productive with documentation and not take as much time documenting in the office to give us more field time. So, and it's honestly, I feel like it's been helpful. A note that I have to complete, normally it takes me 10 minutes. It takes me probably 5 minutes now because of that system. So I think I think it also depends on the field you're in, where AI could really take over jobs, but in other fields, it's more to support, almost like what we talked about with homework, where you got to double check it. You got to make sure it's doing it correctly, but it could help you be more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously like certain jobs that are more at risk, right? If you're
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
creating art, creating music, like
Yeah.
writing little blogs, right? Like doing simple programming tasks. I mean, right now you could just ask Chat GPT to do that
Yeah.
for you, and it will. So, I mean, yeah, depending on what type of job that you're in, you may or may not
Mhm.
be more at risk.
Yeah. Awesome. Tim, he didn't say podcasting, so we're good. We're good. He
That's
didn't,
nailed it.
he didn't mention
Yeah.
podcasting, so we're okay.
Yeah. We can keep it
We're
up.
we're we're safe for now.
Actually,
Yeah.
dude, I don't know. Have you guys
Hey,
seen
Don't
that
you
though?
start. Shut it.
run
Zip it.
it.
No, I
Yeah.
swear, dude. Okay, since you already mentioned it,
Yeah.
there's
Uh,
actually like an AI that can output a podcast,
Mhm.
and like it'll basically look at a whole bunch of data, like whatever you give it, right? If it's
Yeah.
text based or if it's like an actual video, and it'll actually create a podcast out of, whatever it is that it read. And the podcast will basically be like however you want to set it up, whether it's like a
Uh-huh.
male, female, male, male,
Yeah.
female, female. And it'll basically just go and like it'll look like it's actually two people that are talking,
Yeah.
interacting. So sorry, sorry to
well,
burst your bubble there.
actually, actually though, I feel like that just kind of I just had a brain blast moment here. Maybe getting AI as a guest one day and just talking shit, back and forth and see how it can handle it.
That's true.
Sounds like a fun time, see if
It
it
could
trash
be.
talks back,
Yeah,
you
get the
know.
Yeah.
banter going.
You get the banter going. That's what we're all about. So that'd be perfect. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think one sort of final question for me, at least with finances, because I know you're the guy for that too, Armando. Every time we
Hmm.
hang out, you give us suggestions, ideas. Like I say, you give us what you do. But I've seen this autopilot app. where, it's an app that follows like senators and what they're investing in and investing in the same thing. Do you think that app is a good way to invest, and is it smart, or are there risks to doing that, really not knowing if they're actual stocks that these, senators are investing in?
Yeah, so I had heard of this like Autopilot app.
Yeah.
I never actually had like looked into it very much until recently. So basically, like you said, you're basically copying trades, right,
Hmm.
from fund managers, politicians, other investors. The problem is though, is that you're looking at their 13F filing, and basically this filing says the trades that they were able to conduct, right? And you basically have like a delay. I think it's like
Hmm.
45 days from when they
Oh.
did it. So what happens is like they'll do their trade, right? And then you're copying them, and everyone else that's copying them
Mm-hmm.
will also execute the same trade on delay. So, I mean, if you get, which you probably will, get the filing when
Hmm.
the stock market is not currently open, that market is either going to push the stock up or down. Like, let's say you're copying Warren Buffett,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So, whatever trade that he just made, everyone else is copying him, and it's going to push it up, right? Because
Hmm.
everybody's buying it, or it's going to push it down now because everybody's selling it.
Hmm.
So, whatever position Warren Buffett got in, or whoever that you're
Hmm.
following got in, you're not going to get in or out when they get in or out. So, I mean,
Hmm.
it might be better or worse, but if it's actually working right, eventually in the long term, right, people are gonna cause it not to work very well. And
Hmm.
obviously this doesn't look at like their shorting positions, right? You can't
Yeah.
copy their shorts, you can't copy their options. This
Hmm.
isn't filed in the 13F. And I mean
Okay.
a lot of these investors do options, not
Hmm.
not so much shorting. And then the other thing that we don't look at is like portfolio sizing, right? Like
Yeah.
Warren Buffett is moving tons of money around. So there's a
Yeah.
reason why he's buying certain stocks. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can follow him, but I mean, you're probably, not, you shouldn't be using the exact same strategy that they
Yeah.
are. I think in summary, it's a cute trade that you can
Hmm.
execute if you want to gamble a little bit. But I
Hmm.
mean, if you want to do this for the long term, I don't think it's sustainable. I mean, you
Okay.
can't scale it very easily, right? I mean, it's easy
Hmm.
come, easy go, right? You might make one good
Hmm.
round, one trade, and then lose a ton of it on
A
another
ton of it.
trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
think if you actually want to invest properly, I think indexing is the way to go.
Okay. Okay. No, yeah, it's one thing I've seen and people talking about, and like I say, I don't know much about the stock game, that financial thing, but that's good information, for myself and anybody that listens that might be thinking about trying to use that to, invest in something.
There you go. Kind of sounds like you got to day trade it,
Yeah.
ride the wave for a day.
That's right.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I think in general that kind of rounds out, at least the finance
Hmm.
that I had as well. But I know that the next section we kind of want to discuss with you, Bondo, was just regarding space. Obviously,
Hmm.
another endless source of science, I guess. And it's something that we actively, I feel like, talk about a lot. Whenever we get together, I feel like that you're Bill Nye sometimes with us, Bondo. So happy that we get to talk with you a little bit more about this right now. Um, and just starting right off the bat here, is AI a concept from deep space?
I mean, who knows, right? It could be. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's out of this world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where the zinger is. But no, in general, like obviously, AI, I feel like in general has endless sources of, just where it can go, where it can be.
Hmm.
Do you feel like AI can help us, obviously like something like the James Webb Telescope, has unlocked wealths of just information and knowledge. Do you feel like AI in the future, or maybe it already is, can help us with things like asteroids that might come close to Earth in 2032, or help us find other habitable planets, or exploration in general? Do you feel like it could really be a good tool for stuff like that?
I mean, yeah, I mean that's basically what AI's bread and butter is basically looking
Oh,
at large amounts of data, right? And
mhm.
it takes like all of the busy work out of what humans would
Hmm.
do, right? Because it's going to take a whole lot of time, right? If you want to find a needle in a haystack, right? And so if you have an AI system, right, that's basically programmed to start looking at, you know, possibly habitable planets, right? Because when you're talking about space, I mean, I don't think any of us really grasp how vast space is. And I mean, just to give you like an
Hmm.
analogy, right? If you look at the ocean and you look at one grain of sand in the ocean, right? That's us right there. And you want to look at every other grain of sand out there in the entire world. I mean, it's not going to be possible, you know, for
Hmm.
a person, let alone a team. But I mean, if you have a lot of AI models that's basically looking at it like 24/7, right? They don't get tired, they don't complain, they don't take holidays off. They're just always looking, right? And basically they can look and see like which planets are possibly habitable,
Hmm.
right? If we're looking to find certain types of minerals, right? They'll be able to tell us, you know, what types of minerals are in this planet. And I mean, everything is, you know, spaced out by light years. So
Hmm.
I mean, in reality, it's probably not going to be a human going to any of these places anyways, right? Because you would have to have kids on the way there, you know, if it's, you know,
Hmm.
X amount of light years away, let's say 200 light years, right? You wouldn't be able to be alive by the time you got there. So you would have to send, you know, an AI or a
Hmm.
machine out there anyways. So, I mean, yeah, they're going to find it and they're going to go get it.
There it is.
Yeah,
I
that
like it.
that's crazy to think about, because space is so big, and I like your analogy of like, that grain of sand in the water, that's just us in space. Um, but you know, I I'm a movie guy. I see all these movies about space, about AI. Any movies that you've seen, Armando, that sort of you feel is where we're going with AI? There's like iRobot, uh Terminator, Skynet, that type of stuff, Matrix, I feel like that has some sort of like AI embedded in it. Like anything that you feel like could become a reality based off these movies that that are fiction, that aren't real.
So, I mean, I think the one that comes to mind is Ender's Game. I don't know if you guys have
Yeah.
seen that one or not.
Hmm.
But I mean, in that type of AI model, right, you have these humans and these what they call buggers like fighting each other.
Hmm.
And like what I take from that is not necessarily that we'll be fighting, right, aliens or whatever, but I think,
Hmm.
right, uh, government basically funds projects, right? And if you go back to like the
Hmm.
first computer, right, that was funded by the government to basically be able to have projectiles be mathematically tracked, right?
Hmm.
And the internet as well, right? Is the government created that to basically be able to start communication, right? And so I think, or I know actually that the government is actually leading a lot of this funding that is
Yeah.
for AI. And I think the reason for that is because obviously, right, AI models are basically trained to play games, right?
Hmm.
And so I guess it can get a little bit sci-fi, but it's not, we're actually not too far off is
Yeah.
AI being used for war. And I
Hmm.
think, right, in certain models, right, like for example, like a reinforced learning model, you
Hmm.
basically run a ton of simulations on AI, and basically that could be used as like tactics in war. I mean, could you imagine, right, a whole fleet of like drones being controlled in
Yeah, that's
AI
crazy.
to execute, right, battles? I mean, that would be out of this world.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, I never thought about that movie as one as AI, but now that you're mentioning it, it really does make sense, and it looks like we're headed that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Queen is basically like a data center, right? That's
Hmm.
running all of these GPU clusters that's
Hmm.
serving the AI model, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's basically what it is, right?
Yeah,
Take out
it
the
is.
Queen.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Dang. Well, I guess kind of I mean, on the topic of I guess just war and, political leaders in general. Another thing is I feel like AI is getting really good at things like deepfakes. We see, some of them can obviously be hilarious, where it's like a post-game conference and Stephen Curry's talking shit about Draymond Green after a game or something, and we can all just laugh with it. But, on the internet, as we all know, there's there's a lot of naive people or people that just, will believe anything that they see at times. Say, AI kind of takes on a world of its own, and maybe does a deep fake of a political leader and, ignites
Hmm.
something, that could be cause retaliation, things like that. Is there anything with AI that you feel like is, I don't know if something's built into it that could cap what it's capable of? Like, is that kind of built in that way it can't go on its own, or can AI kind of work around that?
So AI has a ton of like barriers, right? Because they don't want to
Okay.
conduct violence, right? They don't want
Mhm.
uh, pornography, right? And
Right.
then, I mean, there's certain things, right, that are illicit that AI models are already trained not to exhibit certain behaviors, right?
Hmm.
So I mean
Mhm.
that's already built into the model. I mean, a lot of banter that you can do, is out there. Or if you like, if you really wanted to like learn how to build or make anthrax, right? You actually can ask the AI model certain ways, and it'll actually tell you. I mean, they already
Dang.
tried to train it, so it won't do that. But I mean, if you really ask it in certain ways, I
Hmm.
mean, yeah, it'll give you that formula. Um,
Mhm.
but I mean, yeah, I mean, it really depends on who is serving the model, right?
Hmm.
Where does it originally come from, right? How they trained it, what ethics they have, and that will basically do that for you. Obviously, right? I don't know if you guys remember, right? The issue with like Facebook back in like 2010 through 2015, right? They were basically doing some social hacking and basically like doing certain posts that could actually trick people into thinking and believing certain things, and you would actually tend to lean on a certain belief system, and then you would actually vote a certain way. So I mean, they were actually using social media, and if you don't
Yeah.
know this, right, social media is definitely using AI, and they were
Hmm.
actually targeting people to persuade them into believing certain behaviors. This was like found out, and then Cambridge Analytica was able to publish an article about it, and then there was like laws put in place in order for
Hmm.
it not to do that. But I mean, we put laws here in the US, but if you're using a model from, DeepSeek in China, I mean, there's
Yeah.
no laws that will protect you. So yeah, you
Hmm.
definitely got to be careful which model you're using.
That's crazy.
Dang. Yeah. I mean, geez. It almost makes me think like AI could catfish somebody
Oh yeah,
at one point.
absolutely. Dude, can you
That's
imagine an
crazy.
AI like as a scammer? I mean, they're gonna make tons of money.
Right.
Did you guys hear about that? Like one lady that and like I say, I didn't look into it too much, but that gave money to supposedly Brad Pitt, who was asking for, or some celebrity that was asking for like thousands of dollars, and she thought it
Wow.
was really him, and I was just like, man, that's how crazy is that? And
Hmm.
if it's AI doing that, like who's running it? Like and like you said, Armando, it's limited. It's not limited, but there's limit settings here. But if you go to China, there isn't anything for us that will protect us, and they could go deep.
Yeah, I mean, the AI systems are only going to get better and better. And like right
Hmm.
now, you can just text, right? Talk to it. I
Hmm.
don't know if you guys have seen, but you could also like get on voice and just actually like talk to an AI on voice.
Hmm.
You can like video stream to an AI, but it'll basically just look at your like video feed and like comment on that. There isn't like a feedback AI
Hmm.
that's streaming back to you, but I mean, it's only a matter of time, right, until they do that, and then you'd have a bunch of AI bots out there, right, in chat rooms that are freaking just like social hacking people.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. Sorry to add on to this little rabbit hole that we're going down with as far as like, you know, uh, I guess AI kind of becoming alive. Do you feel like AI could ever be considered a form of life?
I mean, in science fiction, right, that happens, but right now, because of like the way that we're breaking it down, right, it's this multi-layered system that
Hmm.
is being
Hmm.
trained to do, all these tasks. Right now, for me, is like as a mindset of an engineer, I don't see it yet. I think that's like why a bunch of companies are pouring a bunch of money, right, into
Hmm.
AI is eventually, right, uh, they want to solve for AGI, which is basically artificial general intelligence, which is like an all-encompassing AI system, right? We talk about all these models that can do all these things. Well, we're really just trying to emulate the human brain as much as possible.
Hmm.
And the human brain, right, basically is what life is
Yeah.
essentially, right? And so we have like different parts of our brain that's used for different things, which is basically what an AI system does, right? Is you have different parts of your brain that do certain things, or you have different sensors, right? Touch, feel, see, hear, right? If you program an AI system with all these different sensors, right, with all these different layers that are intricate, I mean, eventually you're going to get into this moral high ground debate of like, is an AI system alive, right? Kind of like we do with um, like when we say whether life is existing or not, right? That gets into like, whether or not you can abort a fetus or not, right? At certain points, like that's getting political, but
Mhm.
obviously, right, if you're already asking that question, then yeah, I mean, you're going to get political again, right? When is AI created, right? With 50 layers, 100 layers, thousands
Mhm.
layers, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know.
Yeah, because another point to that is like, obviously companies like Tesla are developing, like artificial intelligent robot assistants. At what point do they maybe express something like exhaustion, like, no, I don't want to fold your laundry for the 20th time today, or, do like all these, crazy tasks around the
Mhm.
house, and then, of course, if they start using it in the workforce, then where do you have things like labor rights, kicked
Mhm.
in? And, my mind is kind of probably traveling down years and years from now, but, it's, I was just kind of curious, like, where it will get, it's just
Mhm.
based off of how far tech has come in the last, 30 years. It's going to be fascinating to see how far AI will reach, no matter what part of life it's in. So, yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, AI is one thing and robotics is another. I think there's a bottleneck
Sure.
there, right? So
Mhm.
we haven't quite figured out basically how to like run a very efficient AI system in like a type of robot, right? Because obviously now you
Oh.
have to scale things smaller,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
we're talking about like clusters of GPUs and server rooms, right? And now you'd have to basically downsize that to basically wherever you're trying to have the AI system run in,
Mhm.
and then obviously, right, you would need either if you weren't doing that, right, some type of like internet connection to a server room, and then it also like these systems are remote, right? So you'll have to look at battery, right? I mean, AI is gonna just use battery like a ton
Mhm.
if you're trying to do these types of systems. I
Yeah.
mean, you can already have it right on your cell phone, but this is like the AI model is not actually running on your phone when you download the app, right? You're actually using the internet, right, to connect to the system, and then you're getting feedback back. But I mean, if you wanted to properly do it right, you'd have to have the basically the AI model running on wherever physically the robotic
Mhm.
is. And then there's like tons of variables, right, that are like able to be predicted on this model, right? Like the weather and
Mhm.
everything else, right? I mean, when we're trying to get like a car running on the road, right? There's rules of the road, but there's also like tons of things that can happen that,
Yeah.
are out there. And so this is just like on a being in a road, right? There's tons of scenarios outside of the road, right? So, I mean, depending on what you're trying to do with that robot, it's pretty far down the road for that.
Yeah. It's crazy because I saw that at CES, the convention they have in Las Vegas, AI was a big topic, and a lot of these robots that they're developing. And I think you make a good point that, and it reminds me sort of cell phones, because I remember when cell phones used to be a big old brick, and now they're so tiny, even some of the tiny cell phones and how they fit everything into that small unit. It took many years to develop. So for them to develop an AI robot, and like you say, you normally need a bunch of servers to run an AI, you know, an AI platform like Chat GPT. So how are you going to do that in a robot that's not really connected, to that server room? So it's crazy, but hey, we get to CES, Armando. We'll invite you over so you can help us understand some of this AI stuff that's
Yeah.
there, because there's a lot that I
I'm,
saw.
yeah, I'm still trying to understand it. I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard like any AI podcast, but yeah, I mean, tons of that stuff just
Yeah.
goes over my head. I have no idea what I'm even listening to, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's good to just kind of like, I wouldn't even say scratch the surface. This is more like looking at binoculars
Hmm.
from a surface that's extremely far away, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I know before the episode a few days ago when we were talking to you to bring you on, we I sent you a video of two AI systems talking, where it was someone working for a consumer, an AI working for a consumer, and an AI working for a hotel. And they started talking and they both told each other that they were AI systems, and then they go into this gibber, mode, with that type of, and when I saw it, I was like, this is their own language. I don't know what they're saying, even though it translated it there. Like, is that something we should be worried that there are these AI systems that can talk to each other in a different language that we have no idea what they're saying?
So I mean, I did see the video. I mean, what you're describing is like
Yeah,
an AI system or agent, right? Talking to
yeah,
another AI system or
yeah,
agent. And initially, right, the AI is performing a task on your
yeah,
behalf, right? And then the other enterprise is also
yeah.
using an AI system, right? So, like, if you're just asking for that, I don't think that is dangerous in itself. I think what you should really be concerned about is like who created the AI model and what was it trained to do? Like,
Hmm.
is there malicious intent behind the AI model or not? Because it's not really the model that's going to take a form of its own. It's the creators of the
The
model
creators.
itself,
Hmm.
right? So I think that
Okay.
that's kind of like the more concerning part, right? And
Okay.
where is all this data going, right? Because it
Hmm.
like the communication is a protocol, right? I mean, machines already communicate in protocols that
Yeah.
we don't know what they're saying, but the data goes somewhere, right? Somebody collects it. I don't think
Hmm.
right now. It's not the AI off the rails that's going freaking you know
Somewhere. It's going
that's
somewhere.
going rogue. Yeah, that's gonna
Yeah.
go out and
Yeah.
do harmful things. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
you know, maybe eventually, but not now.
Not now, and not of the way that video showed, where it was like you say, it's a hotel and a consumer using their AI systems to sort of do a job where, if it's like a AI system and a country's AI system, then that's where it could sort of get a little bit more dangerous because we don't know how that country's that is using that AI is going to use that information.
Yeah, and I think like I guess the goal eventually, right, is to have AIs interface with different systems, and
Hmm.
I think that you'd use like an API
Yeah.
application program interface, and you would have
Hmm.
AI systems that interface to a lot of different
Yeah.
industries. And after that, I mean, once they start using it,
Hmm.
I'm sure a lot of good things can come from that.
Yeah.
Imagine AI gets so advanced that it knocks us back in forms of communication and we start using the telegraph again
I mean,
just to go around it.
yeah, in a way, right? I mean, cell phones have already kind of like pushed us forward, right? But also held us back in other
Hmm.
ways. So,
Uh-huh.
I mean, this will just be another form. We'll see what happens, right? I think you bring up a good point when you look at like how AI in schools, right? I mean, all these kids are going to know that they can use Chat GPT to make their
Hmm.
homework. So, like in the
Mhm.
future, right? Are we going to have, children that are actually less intelligent than
Hmm.
previous iterations just because that now they're using AI as a crutch? I mean,
Hmm.
that's
Mhm.
also a good question to think about, but I always
Yeah.
kind of take it dark. Sorry about that.
No, and it's something I've always thought about because, like I said, I read that article on Chat GPT, kids using it, and it did sort of share that a lot of the youth that are using it, they're using it for support, like we talked about, like where it's sort of to help us gain more knowledge, gain an understanding of whatever they're supposed to learn. But there are, like a few percent of people that are using it to try to cheat the system and you know, how is that going to affect our future with, the youth nowadays? Like, are they not going to learn as well? Like these doctors that need to go to school, or if they use ChatGPT, how trustworthy could they be in the hospital room doing surgery? Knowing that half the work they did was a computer system. I'd probably trust an AI robot doing surgery more than a student if that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if it's used properly, right, it can be good though. Like if you're
Hmm.
using it as like a tutor system,
Yeah.
then yeah. So I mean, then it just goes back to, you just have to have the right mindset and be able to
Hmm.
want to learn instead of have the AI model take over for you.
Yeah.
Didn't they say like also like technology is altering like the ability for, I guess, future doctors to be able to have a steady hand, and maybe that's why they're developing things like the robotic hands to start, performing surgeries and stuff like that. Um, so maybe Chat GPT can help the knowledge portion, and then you just rely on a robot to perform the surgery, just kind of
Hmm.
oversee it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's so far-fetched at all because I
Hmm.
mean, you already have to go to school and learn a whole ton of information, right? If you want to
Hmm.
be a doctor, if you can just train an AI uh, robot to be a doctor, and I mean, it doesn't have to perform all operations, right? It
Hmm.
could specialize in certain ones that were okay for
Hmm.
the AI system handling, right? Like if you want to get snipped, right? I'm sure there'll be an
Yeah.
AI
There probably
that's
will
ready
be.
for that,
Careful
right?
down there, Doc.
Yeah, it's gonna be some very cold robotic hands just going
Yeah.
whoop.
Yeah.
That's a
So
pinch.
Oh man, that would suck.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know if I'd trust it. Maybe I would trust it more. I don't know. I don't know.
right? Yeah,
No human
exactly.
error. Yeah. I feel like I trust like robot umpires more in baseball these days. I
Hmm.
think the NBA needs it too. But yeah, hey, no human error. Maybe it's a good thing. Could be a bad thing. Guess we'll find out how much
Yeah.
they implement it. It's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, that's all the questions I really had about AI. Bondo, appreciate you taking the time. Like I say, I'm glad you didn't mention Terminator as the movie closest to what we're probably getting close to, because
It's a
Skynet
good one.
is a scary situation. But I know in a few years it could be different. It could be
Yeah.
something like that we got to be concerned about.
I mean, I did mention war games with AI. I
Yeah,
think, yeah, I think that's even scarier than, one Terminator machine, which is
yeah,
basically having a whole fleet of Terminators that
yeah,
coming at you.
yeah.
It's true.
No. But for sure. But we appreciate you taking the time, Armando. Like I said, we'll welcome you back anytime there's more AI news, any finance news, things that come up. We'll welcome you here because you opened my eyes a little bit more. Like I say, I touched the surface of AI. I think Tim goes a layer below, and you do go a little bit more, and it's just
Mhm.
useful knowledge for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for
I
having me on, guys.
personally I thought it was great. Thank you, Armando.
Yeah.
I feel much more educated after all that. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I get blown away too, just looking at, experts in the field. So, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Fun topic.
Yeah, but awesome. Thanks, Armando. Appreciate it.
all right.
All right. Well, thank you to Armando for joining us. Like I say, that the topics, the conversation, very interesting. Like I say, I feel like I learned
Yep.
a little bit more about AI. Just TikTok education for AI isn't probably the best. Armando dives a little deeper, so I appreciate him sharing. Um, and like I say, good topics. What do you think, Tim?
I completely agree. That AI topic is so much fun to discuss.
Yeah.
AI and aliens combined, I think it's just interesting. It's a mystery.
Mhm.
It's unknown. We don't know
Yeah.
necessarily what we have in store in the future, but Armando made great sense of it
Mhm.
all. And, his explanations were very thorough.
Mhm.
And, hopefully he had a good time with
Mhm.
some of our quirky questions that we like to throw in there.
Yes.
But, very thankful for him to stop by. Certainly hope that this is the first of many visits by
Hmm.
Bondo, because he's just very well informed
Hmm.
on these topics, and it's fun to learn
Yeah,
based off of what he knows.
it is. It is. It's always good to learn and just open up our eyes a little bit more. So thank you, Armando. We appreciate it. But we'll go on to our next part of the show and March Madness. Selection Sunday was yesterday. So we have our round, all our brackets ready to be filled out. We have the first four games starting tomorrow. Um, but Tim, first question. Any surprises that really stick out to you for this year's March Madness?
I think the big one, which is one of everybody else's, was North Carolina getting in. Obviously, their athletic director is part of the board,
Hmm.
and he tried to kind of make it seem like, oh, I had no involvement. I wasn't in the room during that discussion. Pretty much it's kind of one of those things where, you and I could be talking and it's my team that's trying to get in, John, and you're
Yeah.
going back and talking with everybody and I leave the room to go eat a sandwich and I come back and I'm like, hey John, so yeah, what's going on with my team now? What are you guys gonna do? And
That's
it's
what it
like
was.
you can excuse yourself, but you're still fucking gonna want to know
Hmm.
what's up. So just in general, I think that that was a little interesting. You know, UNC obviously a great history there.
Hmm.
I don't want to take away from all those players and their hard work and everything that they did to get there. I think anytime the Tar Heels are in there, it's fun. And
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe they could be a small Cinderella and kind of start beating some
Hmm.
teams and carry on. What do you think?
Yeah, I had North Carolina as the biggest surprise. Just from their records, the way they played this year, they shouldn't have been in it. I think there were other teams that
Hmm.
probably deserved first four that were taken out. I think Indiana, West Virginia had some better seasons, but
Yep.
North Carolina getting in. Um, I think it gives them an easy path to make a nice run because San Diego State a few years ago did really well, but this year they've struggled a bit. So I think they'll be able to win that game, and then um, they have Ole Miss. They have the great talent to make a run. They have to go against Ole Miss, and then that next team, it's between Iowa State and Lipscomb. Winnable games. I think it's once they get to the Sweet 16 where it's going to get tough, but like you mentioned, UNC historic program, always good to have them, you could say in March Madness, but not when they don't deserve it. So it's unfortunate for these other teams. If it was because there is a board member on the selection committee, I think the NCAA has to do a better job of not letting people's heart sort of decide these selections because like I said, there's some of these kiddos that are seniors that wanted to play one more time and played so hard, played their asses off, and were right in that cusp of the bubble. And just because UNC they wanted them in there, they lost that opportunity.
For sure. Yeah, hopefully it's something that they clean up in the future. I don't
Hmm.
want to hold it, obviously I'm joking when I'm talking about, they're back and forth, but at the same time, it just kind of makes you wonder,
Hmm.
how those meetings go and, much like, there's lots to be improved on the football,
Hmm.
portion of college, sport athletics in general. So, it's kind of a hot mess in general across the
Hmm.
board and, hopefully that they can kind of clean it up here in the future.
Yeah.
But again, I don't want that to take away from,
Hmm.
how much fun this March Madness is going to be because there's so much talent in
Hmm.
it altogether. Big news too, Cooper Flagg dealing with an ankle sprain. I think that most recent news topics were that they're going to let him go and,
Hmm.
continue playing. I'm sure they test it in practice,
Yeah.
see how it feels. It's kind of crazy though, just the talent that's even behind Cooper Flag there.
Hmm.
I think that there's a lot to carry them through a lot of this tournament, even if he can't put in the minutes, right off the bat.
Hmm.
There's still it's still not like a nail in the coffin per
Yeah.
se for Duke. I think
Hmm.
that there's still a lot of hope there. But again, that's another one where it's really tricky. Obviously, these athletes have to put in some time in
Hmm.
college or overseas before going into the NBA now. It's
Yeah.
obviously been like that for the last decade or so. But, again, NIL stuff, kind of getting, just slightly off topic here, John. If you're Cooper Flagg's agent in all of this, do you let him play? Or if so, would you put him on like a minutes restriction or something like that?
Um, if I was his agent and his parents, I would say play a minute restriction the first round. Like I said, they were able to win their conference championship without Cooper Flag. So they have a great team. So I think they could get past the first round. Second round is where they may need him a little bit more. So resting that ankle, not putting too much pressure, maybe have him sit on the bench, and if they're struggling, bring him in for a bit for a little bit of that momentum pace change because that's what Cooper Flagg is. But um, you need to protect him because you don't want him going into this draft. He's the number one pick, I think already. I think consensus. Everybody who's I want to say it, the NBA teams that are tanking, um, they're going for Cooper Flagg. You know, you could say Dallas is going for them because they're losing every single player. Philly, same thing. All their players are out. Um, so they're going, it's a Cooper Flag sweepstakes. So you want to keep him healthy because you want him to be the top pick and get paid, because that is the goal, even though yes, he could come back next year to Duke or go into the transfer portal, any other team, NIL money, they're gonna triple whatever he was making this year to get him to a
Oh
new
yeah.
school. So, but he needs to be healthy. So I think that's the first priority.
Yeah, no, that's definitely number one. Interesting stuff to kind of, you know, I guess pay attention to.
Yeah.
I'm sure that this tournament means a ton to him.
Mhm.
It's always fun to see Duke be in there, be competitive. So, yeah, minutes restriction, like you said, maybe first round is kind of the smart way to play. Um, Outside of that, John, I haven't personally filled out a bracket yet. I
Mhm.
was planning on doing it
Yeah.
here, probably this evening or early tomorrow. Um, but I've been looking through the brackets all
Mhm.
together. I don't know, do we want to, I guess, I guess we'll do maybe a first round recap and then kind of
Mhm.
work our way into, who we have as a winner
Yeah.
next week.
Mhm.
Because I'm not yet ready to decide exactly who I think. But as far as, your first glance here, John, do you like have any dark horses so far?
Um, yeah, for me, one, and I think I play this with my heart, Maryland. They had a
Oh
great
yeah.
year. They have a great team. They I'm gonna say it. They made a stupid mistake against Michigan, losing it at the buzzer by letting Michigan just run down the floor. Like I say, they just needed to stop
Oh yeah.
him. It was said before that, that free throw that they can't let him run down the floor, and he had the easiest layup ever to win the game for them by one. But I think they have a solid team. Um, Next is Florida. Florida has a pretty good complete
Oh yeah.
team. They're one I was a little surprised with uh at the beginning of the year. Um After that, the other dark horse for me, VCU. They've been playing well. I think that's a team that can make a nice run um in this tournament. So those are the ones that stick out right now to be able to make that run. Um to the end. Because like I said, St. John's, I think they can make it, but that's not a surprise. They're the number two seed. They've been playing well all year. So how about you,
For
Tim?
sure. Yeah, I St. John's is just a fun one for me. I'm definitely going to
Hmm.
have them getting really far in this tournament.
Yeah.
I think what Patino's put together there is tremendous. I like the classic feel of them as well.
Hmm.
It kind of just brings me back to, just watching in the late 90s, early 2000s
Hmm.
with college basketball and just seeing their coach in a full suit still. I think that's an awesome look.
Yeah.
Big fan of that. Keeping it classy. Obviously, like you said, that's not much of a dark horse or anything like that.
Hmm.
I think BYU is uber talented.
Hmm.
I think BYU could make a good run at things here. Ton of talent on that team. I think teams like, my St. Mary's Gales. It's a college that I
Hmm.
grew up 5 minutes away from, had a lot of enjoyment,
Hmm.
going there, watching their games for $10 or less back in the day. And, just a rotisserie of Australian talent going through there as well, with Deladova
Yeah.
and Patty Mills back in the day. So, they're always in there. They have a tremendous coach. Also, I definitely see them hopefully getting past Vandy.
Hmm.
And then after that, it's going to be a tough matchup, I'm sure, with Bama. That's
Hmm.
going to be a really interesting one. And I was listening to some other podcasts earlier today, and if St. Mary's beats Vandy, then Bama beats Robert Morris. I think pace of play wise,
Hmm.
that turns into a really
Yeah,
interesting matchup.
that'd be a good
St.
one.
Mary's likes to slow it down a ton.
Hmm.
Bama likes the fast-paced play.
Hmm.
So I think that they are literally polar opposites on that, though. Like I think
Yeah.
St. Mary's is like very bottom of pace
Hmm.
of play. So I would love to see those worlds collide. That's one. Outside of that, yeah, I don't know. I feel like this year I always like to choose like a team that's like lower ranked, but
Hmm.
this year I really think I'm going to be pretty heavy on the favorites,
Hmm.
and not necessarily go for a major underdog.
Yeah.
Um, we'll see what Cal Perry does with Arkansas. I know we talked about
Hmm.
him a couple weeks back. Let's see what Cal can do
Yeah.
um, over there, and that's another interesting one also. But VCU, I've heard good things about too.
Yeah.
I don't know. This
Yeah.
is fun, man. This is the best way to tide yourself up until late August when we
Yeah.
draft for
No,
fantasy.
yeah, it's good.
So
We go into April with this, so it's always good. But you sort of mentioned it, and I think it's what we like to watch, at least the first two rounds. Upsets. That's
yeah.
what we like to see. That's why a lot of people are here. That's why a lot of people are betting too. They're betting the upsets. Um, what are 2 to 3 upsets that you are seeing just off of the first, glance at this or looking into it a bit?
Um, so I think Texas Tech is a pretty high seed. I've seen a lot of reports saying that they could be an early loss and out of this tourney altogether.
Hmm.
Up first is UNC Wilmington. I don't know how
Hmm.
well UNC Wilmington will stand against them, but after that, it's either going to be Missouri or Drake. So I think either of those teams could knock out Texas Tech. Another one I believe is Houston's dealing with some injuries. Don't think Edwardsville is going to make a difference. But after that, Georgia or Gonzaga,
Hmm.
I think could be, in there to maybe take down Houston if they're not fully healthy. Another one is Bama. A lot of people have Bama going pretty far, but I think that they did recently have a player who got injured who is
Sears.
going to get some more examining.
Hmm.
Sears, exactly, Mark
Hmm.
Sears, and that's going to be pretty iffy for them as
Hmm.
well. So Bama, I'm not overly optimistic on. But right off the bat, I think that's the major ones I
Hmm.
have um,
Yeah.
that I can think of. How about you, John?
Yeah, I have three. The first one, Lipscomb against Iowa State. I think they could
Okay.
win it. Iowa State's without their star Keyshawn Gilbert. He has a string groin, and the weird thing is that they didn't announce it till this was picked, because I think Iowa State feels like they could get through the first round without their star player. But I think they're gonna run into a wall. I think they're going to struggle because you need to have that star player when they're injured. It takes momentum out, and it's interesting because I also heard reports. I think I heard it on Part of My Take and others that Iowa State didn't really announce the injury beforehand, because if they would have,
Ah,
their ranking would have been a lot lower. And then they
yep.
might have had to face like you know, Louisville might have been an 8 or a 9, going against a tougher team. So, I think they kept it
It's a great
quiet,
point.
trying to get that higher seed, and they got it. But I think Lipscomb could take it from them. The next one, VCU versus BYU. You mentioned BYU. BYU is an amazing team. They have great talent, and I think it's going to be a tough game. But I think VCU is the stronger team, the more complete team. I saw them winning their conference championship. They have a great, solid squad, and they've always been a dangerous team in the tournament. You always hear VCU, making those upsets, being one of the lower seeds and winning. And then the next one, um, UC San Diego. First time in the big show. Um, Going
Mm-hmm.
because I'll call them hometown because state of California, and they've played well this year. Michigan, I think they also play really well, but they've also have lost a lot of games that they should have won. That's why they could have been a number one seed if they would have won some of those games. And I think anytime there's a first time team in the tournament, they give it their all, and they have an upset. They win the games. So I think UC San Diego being a first timer, they're gonna win this first round, and it's gonna be one of the bigger upsets of the tournament. After that, there's a lot. Drake, like you mentioned, I think a great team. Arkansas
Mm-hmm.
could win it. Utah State's another solid team. UCLA's been struggling a bit, so I think they could
Yep.
take it to them. Um, I've heard McNeese. Haven't really seen too much about them, but they're playing Clemson. I'm curious about that game.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
High
but yeah,
Point's another one I heard a little bit about.
High Point. Yeah, High Point.
Yep.
Akron against Arizona. I think Arizona's a solid team, but people are saying also a very complete team. I think they've had their team together for a few years. So
Sure.
there's a lot
Another
of
one I
games.
got. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's what makes these rounds so much fun.
Yeah.
These first two, it's God, it's like a field day. One that I sorry, I misspoke
Hmm.
on Texas Tech. It's actually Texas A&M and their
Texas
matchup
A&M.
against Yale.
Yeah,
So
Yale's.
Yale, I think, is maybe a bit of a dark horse here,
Hmm.
at least for this first round,
Yeah.
where they are a really strong three-point shooting team.
Hmm.
The Aggies are good interior wise, but struggle on the perimeter. So if
Yeah.
Yale can get that three ball going, I
Hmm.
think Yale's
Yeah.
will take that game. Obviously, very educated players as well. Maybe they'll
Yes.
use that to their advantage as well. So,
It is.
you know, but
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I misspoke on that one. I just wanted to clarify that yeah,
Yeah.
Yale over Texas A&M is probably a an upset that I will choose, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
And I think right off the bat here, John, I think we're gonna have a bit of a disagreement here with BYU and VCU. So
Yeah,
I think
that's the
that's gonna
one.
be a fun one to really pay attention
Yeah.
to. I'm excited for that one now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like it. That's what
BYU,
it's all
like I say,
about.
BYU, nothing against that team. They are a solid squad. Great team. I just think
Yep.
VCU has the talent to take it. The spread right now, minus 3.5 for BYU. When I see that, like I said, this isn't a home game. This is, you know, by sectors. Minus 3.5. Normally for a home team, you take that, that's why they get that extra 3 point bump. So in reality, they're a point 0.5 favorite. So that's just a point. So they're seeing it going any other way. So it's going to be a close
Yep.
one. Um,
It definitely is. This game's going to be so good. It's going to
yeah.
be really evenly matched. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And
Just
then,
looking
like I
at the
say,
stats.
yeah. And then Maryland, like I say, I want Maryland to go far. But I'll be honest, Grand Canyon, that every time I see that team, I'm like, I hate them because they just pull off upsets left and right,
Yep.
and this is the first time Maryland's been in the tournament in a few years. So I hope we can make
Yeah.
it far because I think if we get through Grand Canyon, we can make a nice run.
For sure. That's one of those Grand Canyon's one of those like what was it, Florida Atlantic
Yeah.
way back that made the run. Yeah, it's one of those teams that you just want to avoid just
Yeah.
because they just have that random,
Uh-huh.
God sent momentum.
Yeah, they do.
Uh, you know.
Mhm.
And if I'm not mistaken, the GCU women's team is in the
Mhm.
tourney as well,
Think
right?
so. Yeah.
So props to GCU altogether. I
Yeah.
mean, holding it down. Good for them.
Hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, props women's wise. I think USC's taking it this year.
Oh yeah.
I think there was a
USC is so good.
little disrespect
Juju.
towards USC. being the fourth ranked number one team. I think they were probably one of the best. UCLA was number one, but above them, and they beat them, I think, three times this year. So it doesn't make sense how that happens, but they're mad and
Yep.
they're gonna make a statement.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, deservedly so. Yeah, and Notre Dame, UConn obviously
Hmm.
stick out as other,
Hmm.
forces there too. Uh, South Carolina on the ladies front are still
They're
pretty good on top.
solid. Yeah, they're still a good team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
All right.
what
We'll
I
see how it
think
shakes out.
women's side will be good too. But yeah, March Madness, we're there. I'm excited. I'm stoked. Did my work bracket already. Gonna do our bracket here. If you
There you
guys
go.
want to join our ESPN group, uh join us. Banter on the Rocks is our group. Feel free. We're here for fun. Let's see who takes that crown for the year, bragging rights, because you win
Yep.
this in a group, you're lucky and you earn those bragging rights.
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah, and we've with our new audience, we've had a good uptick in our subscribers recently.
Hmm.
So, hopefully a lot of our new
Hmm.
followers, will jump into this tourney and make it, super competitive.
Hmm.
Obviously, we're all competitive. This is the time of year for it. So,
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. I think that this tournament's going to shake out to be one that's just a lot of really tight matchups. We didn't even
Hmm.
touch base on Michigan or Michigan State much right
No.
now, and those are two more teams that I think could be a force to reckon with.
Hmm.
So,
With
this tournament also,
Wisconsin, man, Wisconsin's another great team.
yeah, they're
Memphis,
another great one.
there's just so much to talk about that I just get so overwhelmed
New
that I'm like, man,
Mexico's good.
New Mexico, like I say,
Yep.
it's crazy. Tennessee being a number two ranked, you haven't seen them that high in quite a few years, so
Yep.
there's just so much going on. And like, yeah, the first two rounds, the best two rounds of this tournament. After that, it's still great. Sweet 16, Elite Eight, seeing these
Yep.
kids play their asses off because it means something to them. And take note, NBA, that's how you got to play. You got to play your ass off, especially when you're getting paid the
Yep.
big bucks.
Exactly. Yeah, we're tired of the ticky-tack NBA right now.
Yes.
Change it up a bit. Get a
Yeah.
March Madness going. The in-season tourney isn't like it.
Yeah.
Don't like it.
Yeah, no, for
Let's
sure.
stick with March Madness.
Yeah, but
But yeah,
yeah.
super excited.
Yeah, super excited. But yeah, that's March Madness. Like I said, we'll talk more about it next week, see how our first two rounds go. But that's it for today. Thank you to everybody that joined us today. As always, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, please hit that subscribe button below. Follow us. Get alerts. Hit that bell button too to get alerts when our new shorts come out. Give you a preview of our episodes and also our full length videos. Also with the videos, we like as always, we talk about so many things. So we do have our little timeline. So if you just want to go to certain topics, feel free to just hit that, go to those topics, and leave a comment. We really do love the comments. We love the engagement. We'll always respond back, have a friendly banter. Um, in the comment section. If you look at a lot of it, we enjoy the feedback. Same with our TikToks and Instagrams. We appreciate and enjoy the comments. Talking to a lot of you guys, getting your guys' take because you guys do give us great points to make us think a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we had a lot of that this past week, John, especially
Hmm.
when it came to our Star Wars topic.
Yes.
And we had folks dropping full-on movie script ideas and
Yes.
plot lines, and that was incredible.
It's awesome.
And whether it's with us or against us, everybody has a complete right
Hmm.
to an opinion. That's exactly what
Yeah.
we're on here to discuss. So, thank you so much for the engagement. It's exactly what, we're looking for and we're excited to see. And, we can range from anything from football dynasty talk to just getting nerdy with Star Wars.
Yeah.
So, it's
To
it's it's all fun.
To Hollywood gossip.
You bet.
We'll
Yeah.
touch on that
Maybe
too.
we'll, you bet. Yeah, we have some more stuff for next week, no doubt.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. But
Awesome.
yeah,
Let's hear
we
it.
appreciate everybody joining us. And also Apple Podcasts. If you're on the road, download the episode, listen to it while you're driving. You're always a lot of people are in traffic, so good content for you guys. And then, like we say, also leave comments on any of our socials. But thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Appreciate the support. As we get closer to our next subscriber goal, we will share a little bit about our next contest. So hopefully, and for this next one, we are going to try to make it more worldwide. This first one was limited to just in the States, but we do have our
Yep.
out of the country followers, listeners, subscribers. So thank you also for listening to us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you.